Welcome in here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. We want to get right to some breaking news in south of Boston, Taunton. A mother and daughter injured in a house explosion. Let's take you now. This is a press conference that's happening right now near the scene.
Of the 78 Plain Street. So initially they started an exterior attack. They were looking for possible victims, which in this case there were two on scene, a young female and her child. Rainham Fire responded with their ambulance for mutual aid. They transported the female to Rhode Island Hospital, where she has, I guess she's undergoing treatment for burns. I don't know her status right now. And the child was transported by Brewster Ambulance to Hasbro in Rhode Island as well. And same status for the child. I don't know the child's condition at this point.
Were they conscious? Were they conscious
Excuse me?
at all?
I don't know. I wasn't on scene at the time. I haven't talked to anybody that transported them. From what I believe is the female got out. She realized the child was inside the house. She went back in for her child, and that's when she suffered her injuries. So I believe she did come out on her own. I don't have any information other than that.
Are they life-threatening injuries? Or?
More than likely, yes. Like I said, I don't know their condition as of right now, but the injuries from witnesses say it was pretty severe.
Do you have an age on the child?
Approximately 2.
So you're not sure if this was a gas explosion? I mean, looking at the debris field and how quickly this building blew up, does that give you any indication that there was a gas explosion?
That's what we're looking at right now, but like I said, the investigation's going to rule out everything, rule everything in at this point. We haven't got to that point of the investigation, but we're probably leaning that way.
And so when you got here, was the building already down and up in flames?
When crews arrived on scene, it was fully involved. That's the only information I have right now. Heavy smoke, fully involved, extending to explosions.
So how challenging? If you could describe the fire for you and your guys, like, what were the challenges?
The challenge like this, gas controlled, searching for people, getting water on the fire initially. It's whether it's December or July, we have our procedures that we go through. We run right down the list. Life safety, exposures, then containment. Obviously, we're out digging out from a blizzard, so the blizzard didn't help. The snow on the road, and roads are narrow. These trucks are big, so it was tough getting here. The station's maybe a quarter mile away from here, so response was fairly good considering the conditions.
Could you just clarify? I'm sorry, Dave, I didn't understand. But so the two victims, they were in the address at 78.
They were actually, from what we're told, there was actually 3 people in the house at the time. The 25, approximately 25 years old, I'm told. The female, the child, and the female's boyfriend was in the house, we think. There was initial reports that he was missing. State police did contact him, so there's no one missing.
But they were in the house at 78 when they...
That's what we believe. I haven't talked to the investigators. Well, the details yet.
Well, it's not to go on about it, but the boyfriend, is there some, I mean, we're not sure he was there. Are police involved in this investigation? Is it criminal?
No, our understanding is that the boyfriend was not present when the explosion happened. The victim took herself out of the house with her baby and actually went to a house behind them. That's where we found the victims.
So, was there any damage or fire spread to other homes?
Yes.
Chief, can you step to the right? You said the boyfriend was not home?
Not to our knowledge, he was not home. He was reached afterwards. We were concerned because we did not know if he was present in the house or not. We ultimately were able to determine that he was not present at the house.
So is there anything suspicious or nefarious about what happened here, or that's not?
No, not at this point.
nothing.
No.
So everyone just in the chaos, people came and left and
Yes.
got out. And
Yes.
the chief had mentioned that it sounded like the baby or the toddler may have been still inside and they didn't know that.
Our understanding is the mother went back in to retrieve the child. And that's how she got burned.
Was the child also burned in the
Yes.
How about in terms of the gas? I mean, it was shut off to the area, I presume, Chief. And you know, what stage is it at now, and when would it be turned back on? Perhaps?
Eversource arrived on scene fairly quickly. They did a great job locating the gas shut off in the street. We had to dig to get to it, clear the snow, and then they had to open up the ground to get to the shut off. Eversource did a good job. They arrived, like I said, to shut off the gas, and they're still on scene monitoring for gas levels or anything else that we may need.
How rare is something like this? You know, an explosion that quickly, that much fire. Can you just speak to that?
I mean, we all see it on the news every now and then. It happens, not frequently, thank God. They're fairly rare. We do lots of gas calls every year. Taunton Fire Department responds to them, and a lot of times they're just minor. The investigation will dig into that, see if it was a gas leak, and if it was, why? Was it equipment failure, or was there another reason?
Any
Mayor,
advice
can
to
I ask you, Mayor?
homeowners when it comes to their homes, especially with 30 inches buried against people's houses right now?
No, Fire Marshal puts it out on social media. I put it out on my department's social media. You know, clear out your vents. Get your shovel out there, dig out your vents, make sure that they're free of snow, any obstructions, whether it's an exhaust vent or an intake for your furnace, your boiler. You got to make sure that they're cleared out.
Could it
Mayor, can I ask you, like,
is there a reason it wasn't a city ambulance just a little bit closer? Or was
We
it
don't run,
right
the
up?
city doesn't run the ambulance. Brewster runs the city ambulance. Brewster contracts with the city of Taunton to provide EMS for the city. Taunton Fire crews run with Brewster on all medicals in the city. That's normal here. Been doing that for many, many years. I've been here 38 years now. We've always had a private company running EMS for the city of Taunton.
Seeing the destruction, is it a miracle that there's no loss of life this morning?
Seeing the destruction, people being inside, I'm not surprised at the injuries. We'll see what happens.
Mayor, if I
Somebody
may.
has a question. All right.
So, like 30 inches of snow, there are people on this street right now who don't have power, don't have heat, this house explosion. I guess, what are your thoughts to this neighborhood, to the community as we're dealing with yet another issue here?
You know, despite the disaster we have here, the natural disaster we just had, I think our community is a blessing. Everybody pitches in, everybody helps one another. The neighbors were concerned, they were out there helping. Our first responders were excellent on the scene right away. Police were helping the firefighters, and vice versa. Everyone was helping everybody, pitching in, doing what needed to be done to address the situation. So we are very fortunate in Taunton to have such professionals that work here, and to also have the state come in to help us as well.
Do you have any
Thank you, everybody.
anticipation when power might be back on for the folks here?
We don't, and like I said, everybody's doing what they can. We want to make sure everyone's safe. We want to make sure we know what's going on. We do have 30 Olney Street open, our senior center, for anyone that needs to get warm, get something to eat, and just have a place to be.
Mayor, what's your reaction to seeing what you saw this morning?
You know, my reaction was just, we're praying for that family. It was a devastating scene. I am so thankful that we have such wonderful police and firefighters that were on the scene so quickly. We're praying for that family and hoping for the best. And you know, we want to really stress to people, there is still a natural disaster happening too. Please stay off the roads. It made it much more difficult for our people to get here. So if you don't need to be out, don't be out.
Have you been in touch with Eversource?
Eversource is here. Everybody's been talking to everybody. They're on the scene. They've got a lot of crew here as well.
I guess houses shouldn't explode.
We would never want to see a house explode.
Why?
Yeah, we'll be looking into why. The investigation's ongoing.
Mayor, were fire hydrants an issue in this?
Fire hydrants were an issue, so another reminder to people to clean their fire hydrants. We had our police officers digging out the fire hydrant when they got here. So again, everybody doing whatever they had to do to make sure that they could address this situation.
Is
Can you
there
give that
enough?
address again for the shelter?
For the shelter, it's 30 Olney Street. It's our senior center here in Taunton.
How about in terms of, is there a number of homes that have been impacted by this, that are without power, that are without gas?
There are a number of homes on the street that do not have electricity and gas right now. We're working to, obviously we want to get that back on as soon as we can, but we want to make sure that we do that safely. And we've been telling people they can go to the senior center if they need someplace to be.
You don't have any idea how many there might be, though?
We are not sure how long at this point.
No, number of homes.
Oh, the number of homes. We are not sure the number of homes at this point, yeah.
Are those supposed to be evacuated at all?
No one has been evacuated. The homes on the immediate sides of the house that exploded, one was potentially empty because it was for sale. The other one, the people had to leave because they are damaged.
How many folks are in that house, do you know?
I do not know how many folks were in that house.
The numbers guy, I guess.
Yeah.
Are they being assisted by the Red Cross?
The Red Cross is here on scene as well. We've got every stakeholder, every helper that we need is here today, and we're very thankful for that.
You don't know that the folks who were injured at all, do you? Are you familiar with them, with the mother and the child?
I have not been told their names as of yet, so I'm not sure, but it is a very close-knit community, a very tight neighborhood, so we're praying for the family and also for the neighbors who I'm sure feel devastated as well.
What about the third person? The third person that was in the house?
Only 2 people were injured. We are unaware, at least I'm unaware of whether there was a third person actually in the house.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so you just finished watching a press conference there. And again, just to catch you up, a mother and daughter have been taken to the hospital after an explosion, a house explosion in Taunton, Massachusetts, south of Boston, that happened this morning there, according to fire officials. Now, the explosion was reported at a home on Hart Street near Plain Street. We're still working to get images to show you exactly what that scene looks like, but we want to go to this. This is a post on X from Governor Maura Healey. It reads, "I've been briefed on the house fire in Taunton. State Police and the Department Fire Service are on scene, and we're asking residents to avoid the area so our teams can investigate. I'll keep those hurt in the explosion, their loved ones, and their neighbors in my prayers." So we will continue to keep you updated on what's playing out there south of Boston. Let's go now, because we had it up before we go to break. We want to go now to Los Angeles, where happening right now. We've been tracking this. The home and office of the Los Angeles Unified School District Superintendent is being searched by the FBI and law enforcement, and that's according to law enforcement. Federal authorities confirmed the search was being carried out, and that an affidavit in support of the operation was under seal. Again, the Los Angeles Unified School District Superintendent, his home and office being searched by federal authorities. So not a lot of information regarding why this is happening. Again, the affidavit was filed in support of the searches, is under seal. So we'll continue to keep our eye on this. And as we continue to keep our eye on this, and as more information comes in, we're going to head to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. A busy afternoon, so we don't want to waste any time. We want to go out to Tucson, Arizona, where right now we're seeing some activity outside of the home of Nancy Guthrie. She is the mother of today co-host Savannah Guthrie. That search well into week 4 for her. So it's still unclear what's exactly happening, but we noticed some activity, and if more information comes in, we'll be sure to bring it to you here on Live Impact News. Next, we want to go here. This is Artemis 2. This is the Kennedy Space Center. It's being rolled off the launch pad for repairs. Correct me if I'm wrong, James. That launched early April?
Early April is the earliest possible date. That's right.
So James has been well
sitting at the edge of my seat waiting.
So again, you know, as Brad mentioned yesterday during our shows on WCNC Charlotte, this is safety, out of abundance of safety and abundance of caution, because there are actually people that are going to be.
That's right. 4 astronauts, one of which is from North Carolina.
So rather be safe. All right. We want to go now to Taunton, Massachusetts. This is south of Boston, where we just heard from officials there, and we're getting a better look at the scene as a mother and daughter have been taken to a hospital after an explosion there. You see a reporter from our NBC affiliate there in Boston getting ready for a live shot there. Again, an explosion there at a home in Taunton. As soon as we get more information on that and the conditions of that mother and daughter, anybody else hurt, we'll be sure to pass that along to you. And last, again, I told you a busy afternoon. This is a live look outside of a search happening by the FBI, law enforcement, searching the home and office of LA Unified School District Superintendent's home. Look, this is the nation's second largest school system. And so we saw this. Limited information on why this search is happening, but according to NBC4 LA, they did reach out to the school district for comment. They're still waiting to hear back. An affidavit was filed in support of the searches, and it's under seal, according to authorities. As soon as we get more information, we will follow up and bring it to you again here on Live Impact News. Told you, a busy afternoon here on Live Impact News. Last night here on WCNC Plus and on WCNC Charlotte, we had the president's State of the Union address. And so we had Malcolm Graham, Charlotte City Councilman Malcolm Graham, and we called up with him to get his reaction. All right, so if you were watching last night here on WCNC Plus, also on WCNC Charlotte, you heard President Donald Trump's State of the Union speech. In that speech, he recognized the mother of Irina Zaruska during that State of the Union address in Washington, D.C., as he called on Congress to enact tougher punishments for repeat criminals. I just want to read a little bit what he said. So President Trump said, quote, "We're honored to be joined by a woman who's been through hell," introducing Irina's mother. And he goes on to say, in 2022, she and her daughter, what a beautiful daughter, so beautiful, and what a beautiful young woman. Irina fled war-torn Ukraine to live with relatives near Charlotte, North Carolina. And by the way, what's going on with Charlotte? So right now on the program, we have Charlotte City Councilman Malcolm Graham. He's here in studio. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity to do that.
You paused a bit, and I guess I want to ask, what's going on with Charlotte? That's what President Trump asked.
Well, first of all, let me say to her family and friends that my thoughts and prayers are still with them. Certainly, I understand the impact of losing a family member due to murder. My sister herself was a victim of a violent crime, and so I get it. What's going on in Charlotte is that we're responding to what's happening on the ground. We certainly responded to the FTA when they had inquiries, to the state auditors when he had questions about public safety in Charlotte. Our leadership went to the General Assembly 2 weeks ago and spoke about public safety in Charlotte. And we certainly addressed some of the issues that we felt that we needed to because of her death. More off-duty CMPD police officers now patrolling the light rail station, more private security out there on the platforms, securing as well. The City Council extended their jurisdiction, so now they can go beyond the platform in some areas to patrol as well. just doing those things that we have to do to ensure public safety in our city. Uptown Charlotte, for an example, we still have our Uptown Task Force focusing on crime. A press conference just last week talked about more lighting from Duke Energy to make Uptown brighter and more visibly appealing as people are walking around, so we've done that. Private security officers in the parks in Uptown Charlotte, and it goes beyond Uptown Charlotte in reference to public safety throughout the community. In 2025, overall crime in Charlotte is down 9%, violent crime down 21%, property crime down 6%. Focusing on Beatties Ford Road, the area in which I represent, a lot of police activity up and down the corridor, specifically on Catherine Simmons and Beatties Ford Road, working with Mecklenburg County to identify resources for individuals that need help from mental health, substance abuse, directing them to services and programs. We're doing a lot to respond to crime in our city, and as a result of the murder that occurred last year, but in addition, crime is our top priority as a community.
I just want to get your reaction to that address. It was a wide-ranging State of the Union. We talked about it before we started recording. You watched it. I watched it as well, and he focused in on Charlotte for that bit. I just want to get your overall reaction to what he said, not just about Charlotte, but overall the address.
I'm extremely concerned about our country. I'm extremely concerned about the leadership that's coming out of Washington, D.C. that impacts everyday people on a wide variety of issues. I'm concerned about issues coming out of the Justice Department. I'm concerned about people being murdered in Minnesota. I'm concerned about people being picked up on the streets right here in Charlotte for being Latino and brown. The tone of the State of the Union address, people still are hurting. Affordability is still a problem and a real thing. Affording housing, grocery, gas, utilities are real things. I think this administration is out of touch with the people. I think when you talk about corruption, you have to call what you see unusual behavior coming out of this administration. And what's more important to me is that men and women of goodwill who know better sit quietly and allow some of these things to happen. I'm really concerned.
I want to make another quote, and I want to get your reaction to this. So President Trump, he called to Carlos Brown, the man accused of killing Irina Zaruska, quote, a deranged monster, and saying that Brown was released through, quote, no cash bail. I also want to throw in here, too, President Trump also said that Carlos Brown was in the U.S. under, quote, open borders, which that's not the case. But when he said the piece about deranged monster, mentioning no cash bail, the open borders comment, when you heard that, how did that make you feel?
Well, as you indicated, Carlos Brown is an American citizen. He's not an immigrant. The law that was passed by the General Assembly addresses some of the issues here in North Carolina in reference to cashless bail, so that has been addressed. As a family member who has had his sister death being politicized, I see it all over again. The issues and the stats I mentioned when we first started is the policy discussion around public safety. A lot of the discussion that the president talked about yesterday was the political conversation around public safety. I think if we can stay focused on the policy, and if you focus on the policy and if you follow the data, Charlotte is a safe city. We have a new police chief that's doing a tremendous job outreaching and engaging the community, being very visible. And I think that's a part of the story that we have to tell. When he's asking what's happening in Charlotte, Charlotte's doing a lot to be very assertive in terms of addressing our public safety needs in the community. I also chair the city's budget committee, and we're getting ready to go into our budget discussions. 70% of the city's budget is dedicated to public safety, police and fire and emergency preparedness. That same committee that I chair also have intergovernmental relations responsibility with communicating with the state of North Carolina and the General Assembly. A lot of the things that we're asking for in our legislative agenda deals with public safety. More judges, more DAs, more public defenders, more support for mental health and substance abuse, magistrate reform, right? And so we're all in, not because something bad happened to a good person. We're all in because public safety has to be not just what happens on the light rail, but feeling safe in Ballantyne and University City and NODA and Batesford Road and communities all over the city of Charlotte. We have to take away the politics of crime and focus on the real issues of putting good public policy in place to prevent crime.
You're very visible. How do you get that, and how do you get that message across? I know that's, you've been saying this for a long time, but how do you get that message across throughout the city? And not even, we say often Charlotte, Mecklenburg County. I know you're a city council person, but how do you get that message across the area?
Yeah, because I've said all the time before that if you don't feel safe, you're not safe. So no matter what the stats say, no matter what the data says, people have to feel safe within their own body, within their own community, within their own household. I think it's a joint approach, working with Mark Jarrell and Mecklenburg County, working with the school board to ensure that our kids are safe at school, working with the Alliance and other organizations, doing what Chief Patterson is doing. Last night she was at the Park Ministries on Batesford Road talking about public safety. I've seen her all over town over the last 2 to 3 weeks, right? She's really talking about her vision for public safety and embracing that vision. Went to a meeting last night with neighbors in the uptown area, and we talked about what CMPD is doing in terms of having a specialized entertainment task force, monitoring the bars and the restaurants and the clubs in uptown Charlotte, right? And so everybody's leaning forward, everyone's communicating effectively and efficiently. Unfortunately, we live in a world where bad things happen to good people.
Yeah.
And everyone sometimes when something happens wants to point a finger at a program or a person or a thing to blame. Sometimes bad things just happen, and I know that from a family experience. We got to make sure that we got to get public policy in place, right, to protect that and defend families and work with victims and to assure the community that every resources that we have that's being deployed to assist the perception of crime in our community, as well as the reality that sometimes things just happen.
You talked about Arena's Law. For our viewers, it was enacted following the death of Arena Zaruska. You basically said flat out, you said it plainly, we need the money. We don't have the money here in the area to make this thing go. Where are we right now?
Well, public safety is a team sport, right? Yeah. Everybody has to pitch in, and I think that's the question you asked earlier, right? So the county is doing their fair share. The city is doing our fair share, and we need help from the General Assembly, our state government. And again, the committee that I chair works with the General Assembly through our legislative agenda. A lot of the things that we're asking for, and I even brought some of it, our Tier 1 priorities include additional state funding for mental health support for law enforcement, recruitment and retention, increased staffing for the District Attorney's Office, Public Defender's Office, and the courts. We're also seeking state support to reestablish the local juvenile detention center and supporting House Bill 250 58 to strengthen penalties for assaults on public transit operators. And so we are serious about having this relationship with state government. We can't do any of those things by ourselves. We need their help. And so not only do they have to pass the law, but they also have to provide the resources necessary so that we can have the foundational support needed here in Mecklenburg County, the largest county and one of the largest in the country for sure, certainly the largest in the state. And 22% of the state's economy comes from Charlotte, Mecklenburg. So you would think that they wanted to reinvest in what we're doing here so we can be safe and secure, so we can produce revenue, not only to support what we're doing here locally, but to support other communities throughout the state of North Carolina.
Do you feel properly supported by our state government, by the North Carolina General Assembly?
I think they can do more, and I say that because I served in the state Senate for 10 years, and I clearly understand how the budget works. I wish they would approve a budget. Let's start there. That was due last year. But I think if you take them to their word, and again, we were there in early February. The mayor testified. The police chief was there. The DA was there. The city manager was there. We were well received. They asked questions. We responded, and they left saying that, hey, we want to have a relationship with the city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County to provide support needed to fight crime. That's what they said. Now, I'm an elected official, and I tend to watch what people do versus what they say. I'm cautiously optimistic that they'll keep their word.
One last question before I get you out of here. We keep hearing from President Trump justice for Irina, and we've heard it from other politicians. What does justice for Irina Zareska look like?
I think it's justice for all, right? And justice for victims who were killed because of race and racism and hatred. The justice for her for being on the public transit system. Justice for those two individuals that were killed in Minnesota. Justice for all, right? So we can't be selective based on politics. We have to have a Justice Department that's free and clear from the White House, that can act independently on behalf of the American people. If he wants justice for her and others, we want justice for all, and the way to accomplish that is for him, the president, to take 10 steps backwards and let the Justice Department do its job on behalf of the American people.
Charlotte City Councilman Malcolm Graham, as always, thank you for stopping in here in the Live Impact studio. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, so let's head to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. All right, so before we went to break, we heard from Charlotte City Councilman Malcolm Graham giving his reaction to the President's State of the Union address last night. So the President gave that address last night. You saw it here on WCNC Plus, proclaiming that he ushered in, quote, a golden age of America, but also taunting Democrats in the chamber and blaming the country's problems, again, on Democrats. A wide-ranging speech as his approval ratings have slipped. We have Julie Kay here in studio. Julie, thank you for joining us. And Julie, he said a lot. They included Charlotte, as Malcolm Graham mentioned. We had that interview. And you're fact-checking and verifying some of the stuff it's a lot to go through, but to what was in that speech.
And I think the speech itself was incredibly long, as we've talked about, but the part where he's talking about Irina Zarutska and that tragedy on the light rail is only a few minutes long. I just cut the whole thing for our socials, just so people can see exactly what he said. And he doesn't talk about it for very long, but in it is a lot to work through. I want to start first with saying that Irina's mother was in the audience. That was one of the unannounced guests that he had at his State of the Union last night. And so he started with addressing her and saying, you know, you've been through hell. We are going to get justice for your daughter. The part that we are fact checking is that he blames partially open borders for the murder of Irina Zarutska. The suspect, Carlos Brown Jr., I want to be clear, is an American citizen. He's from Charlotte. And so he is not an immigrant in the sense that I think Trump was using here. So that is important as a distinction. However, he is a repeat offender, which is another piece that Trump talked about a lot. And that is what his focus is now, is making sure that these repeat offenders, as he said, are put behind bars and stay there for long periods of time. So he said, in his quest for justice for Irina Zarutska, he is calling on Congress to pass some sort of legislation to get to that point for repeat offenders, to crack down more on repeat offenders. We don't know what that looks like yet, but that's going to be really interesting to watch. Now, of course, we are also getting local response. You spoke with Malcolm Graham. I talked to Dimple Ajmira about why this was a part of it. So many murders, unfortunately, happen in the United States. Why was Charlotte the target here for this one? Why focus on, you know, the tragedy, what happened to Irina Zarutska? Dimple Ajmira told me, you know, this feels like Charlotte being used as a political prop. That being found in the fact that, you know, some of the facts were incorrect about the reasoning behind this, but also that council members in particular have been outspoken about what they need in order to increase public safety here.
They need the money. That's what they say.
They need money. Yeah, and that is not unusual for any city of this size. That, you know, there's never enough funding for anything. But they have asked the state legislature for funding to even accomplish some of the goals of Irina's law, the law that the Republicans have already passed that didn't have really any funding attached to accomplish those goals. They still don't have a state budget at this point, and so they are pushing for that to get funding for Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. But they are also pushing directly for support from the federal government at this point. And so I know you talked to Malcolm Graham about that hearing a couple weeks ago, where city and county leaders got a direct chance to speak with Republican lawmakers. Some of it was heated, some of it was more solutions oriented. And so there is maybe a path when the legislature goes back in session that this is a real conversation. But that is basically what they're saying is we can't do much else at this point without funding.
And Malcolm Graham, I asked him, do you feel supported by the North Carolina General Assembly? And just to point out, Malcolm Graham served as a state senator for about 10 years.
Yeah, so he knows.
So he knows how it works. He says he's taking them at their word, right? Although that hearing was tense and it had its moments, he said he walked away at least like there was some sort of something to build off.
Some sort of shared goal here. Yeah. Both political parties want the people to be safe.
But he's cautiously, according to him, cautiously optimistic about that.
Right, and I think that, you know, time will tell with where that conversation goes from here. President Trump bringing it to light again might even put some more pressure on it at the state level, but I think it'll be interesting to see. I know that the city council has trips planned to both Raleigh and to DC to make these asks in person. I'm curious to see what those asks are and how they're different from each other.
Yeah.
What Congress could accomplish versus our General Assembly. I think it'll just be a really interesting couple of months as we continue this talk about spending, and President Trump bringing this up may bring this to light again.
Yeah, a lot of play as this is a big election year. I just want to point that out too. That's the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Julie, when can folks check out your story tonight?
5 and 6.
5 and 6 o'clock. Julie, thank you as always for stopping by.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We want to go now to Tucson, Arizona, where now for the 25th day since Nancy Guthrie was reported missing, investigators have returned to her home in the Catalina foothills. So about 9 a.m. their time, 2 investigators arrived back at the home. One of those investigators backed a truck all the way to the end of the driveway and went into the home. That's according to the News 4 Tucson, NBC affiliate there. Around 30 minutes after that, several SUVs pulled into the driveway. There appeared to be 6 FBI agents on the property. And this comes as the Guthrie family added another $1 million to the FBI reward for information leading to the 84-year-old's return. So we'll continue to keep an eye on this. And as more information comes in, we'll bring it to you here on Live Impact News. Let's go to Kennedy Space Center, where Artemis 2 is slowly, I say slowly, leaving the launch pad. And that is because of repairs, right? And I said this before, James, because I want to, for our viewers, because you are the expert in this. Correct me if I'm wrong, launch date early April.
Early April is the earliest possible chance to be launching those astronauts again to the moon. It all depends on where the Earth is, where the moon is, and a bunch of other things. So there are only a couple days every month. They have to wheel this all the way back to the vehicle assembly building. That's going to take hours. Then they got to do the repairs. Then they got to wheel it all the way back out to the launch pad. So yeah, April is the earliest possible launch.
And I want to ask, just for clarity, right? Because the difference between this one, Artemis 2, and past missions.
Yeah, so in 2022, we had Artemis 1. Same vehicle shape, same equipment, but there were no humans on board. So we launched something that looks just like this. This is the Space Launch System carrying the Orion space capsule. In 2022, we went around the moon. We sent the vehicle further than any vehicle has ever been sent into space before, or at least vehicles that are capable of carrying humans. Now the idea is to put the humans onto that vehicle, fly them around the moon, still not landing on the moon. That's expected with Artemis 3.
All right. Again, James is our expert in all things Artemis, space, transportation, all of that. All right. Let's go now to Wisconsin, where we're hearing from the Team USA women's hockey team, who won gold. Congratulations to them. They won a gold medal at the Olympics, but they opted out of going to see President Trump and his invite to the State of the Union. And this comes as the president delivered sort of a backhanded compliment toward the gold medal winning team. Let's take a listen in.
It's not something we're focused on or really thinking about. We're moving forward, and yeah, we did what we did there, and we're proud of our group. So,
yeah, I think just being able to control the controllables and what happened is something we had no control over, and we take so much pride in what we did, and we love our group that we're not going to let anything take that from us.
Layla, I mean, you've been on this national, this isn't your first national team experience, but I'm sure a lot of people have, when they turned on the Olympics, that was probably the first time they heard your story about being the first, African-American on the team. And I guess I'm wondering, did the Olympic experience give you a different appreciation for kind of what that means? And are there any stories of, you understanding that impact from the Olympics?
Yeah, definitely. I think the Olympics, if anything, it showed me even more how much of an impact, my story can make. And it's the biggest sporting event in the world. So I think it was great. The Olympics was great for my story. And not in terms of the fame, but to get my story out to as many people as I can is the goal, because that in turn can inspire even just one person, or be a role model to one person. It inspires someone to try hockey, to stick with hockey. Yeah, I think the Olympics was great for that. And I was able to share my story with a lot of people on a lot of platforms, so I'm really grateful for that.
You guys always seem to be level-headed, always stay in the moment. Do you feel like, even in the national championship game last year and then with the Olympics, and I recognize that with Hillary Knight and the other Badgers that played well, do you feel like that has a lot to do with Coach Johnson, the way you guys are taught through this program?
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it stems from the fact, I think we all talk about it, how calm he is on the bench, and he never makes us worried at all, even if we're down in games. He's never freaking out or it gets too high. He's very even keel and puts trust in us, and he's done that over the course of the last 4 years we've been here. So obviously, knowing that that's what we rely on every year since we've been in college, you definitely take some of that consideration into obviously on a bigger stage like that, even though it's not him coaching, but that feeling. And I mean, like they said earlier too, in that game, if you talk to anybody, I mean, there was no doubt that we were coming back in that final game, and nobody had a doubt in their mind, and it honestly felt like how it was last year in the national championship game. From our whole bench and Coach Johnson, nobody had a doubt that we were coming back and coming out on top, and I think that was a similar feeling that we had this past week.
What did it mean to have this experience with each other?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, you dream of going to the Olympics your whole life, and to be able to do it alongside some of your teammates that you go to college with and experience everyday life with, super cool, and I loved it, and I'm so grateful for it.
I think something that's super special, too, is that all four of us actually played at the same high school at some point, so we've kind of been alongside each other's journeys before college even. So we've seen what each other have brought and where we've developed from 9th, 10th grade to see where we are now, and to be able to live out our dreams together is something that's super special and you don't get to see very often, being with people that you've been with since you were 12 years old or been in their hockey journey since then.
I think going off of that too, it's just, I feel so proud, and I'm so proud of all the work that every one of you guys have put in like for the last however many years, and we've all had really different journeys like since we met each other, you know, when we were like basically little kids. And so it's just really cool to see each other's journey and everyone's hard work pay off, and then to be able to watch everyone have so much success on a world stage was just something that made me really happy for everyone.
Go Badgers.
Hell yeah.
Excuse me, Layla, I'm interested in your perspective on this and anyone else who wants to weigh in, but you had all these experiences, you played maybe the most intense game of your life to this point against Canada. You've got to come back here, you've got 4 weeks of games left here. How do you refocus and put it all back into, starting with Bemidji State this week, giving everything you have for these however many games it ends up being that are left?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like for me, KK and Sims, this is our last go in college hockey, so I've loved every second of it, and, you kind of want to just come with that mindset, leave it all out there, and in order to do that, you got to be present. So I think just taking it day by day, practice by practice, even class by class, just making sure I'm getting the most out of where I'm at, and that'll in turn set me up for success.
KK, I was just curious, as team captain, I guess I'm wondering, how do you, as a leader of this team, how do you handle kind of jumping back in? Obviously the team did well while you were gone. As a leader, do you I don't know, how do you handle that when a team's done well and kind of is built up a different way of going about things since you were gone? But just tell us how you handle that as a leader, please.
Yeah, it's first day back, like Layla said, for me and her, and just super proud of the girls. I mean, you could see it out at practice today. They were snapping the puck, and they looked so good. So just kind of reiterating in the group, like, super glad to be back, like, all of us together, and, just having a great first practice back with one another. But, yeah, I mean, as far as, like, how things have been going, they've been doing phenomenal. It's been so great to watch from afar, and we're just so excited to join back. But, I mean, I feel like what they've been doing has been good, and there's not much to have to be said. It's just more so getting the whole group back on the same page and on board and united as a group, and I feel like we'll have no problem doing that. And there's a lot of excitement around playoffs now, so this is a time, especially when we all naturally come together and, we're united for a common goal, and we know that's winning a couple championships.
Other than a gold medal, did you bring back any souvenirs that are of note?
Other than 4 suitcases full of
endless
clothing.
You got a Tina.
Yeah, a stuffed animal.
This is sweet.
I'm sure you guys saw.
One of our faves,
Yeah.
I don't know, I was pretty engaged in the pin trading of the Olympics. I was pretty avid on that one. It's fun. It's an easy way to kind of strike up conversation with other athletes and people from different parts of the world, and so it's pretty cool to be able to try and get as many countries as you could, which was pretty fun little game we had going on.
How many did you get?
Oh my gosh, I didn't count them, but I got almost every country that was in our village, so pretty successful on that journey.
Nice, Naughty. That's sweet. Good job.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You zip up. Yeah, I got a UAE zip up. That was sick. You did? Yes, and there's 2 athletes.
All right, so that is a U.S. Team USA women's hockey team gold medalist. Just a interesting nugget. So Mark Johnson, the head coach there for the women's team there at University of Wisconsin, played on the 1980 Miracle on Ice team. Thank you for that, Sam. That's a really good nugget right there. Check out that documentary. That's a pretty good documentary that's out right now on Miracle on Ice. All right, let's go to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. All right, so we want to go now to, do we still have that shot? It looks like they're...
Well, they just zoomed way out on us, Nick. It's a lovely shot of Los Angeles.
Okay. So,
but that's the school district building in the bottom center.
Okay, so that's the school district building. The reason why we're pointing that out, because Los Angeles Unified School District Superintendent Alberto Carvalho, according to law enforcement, FBI searched his home this morning there. So again, details on why that search was taking place still unknown. NBC LA did reach out to the school district for comment, still waiting to hear back. I just want to point out the LA Unified School District, second largest school system in the nation. So as soon as that's a ground shot to your left of Carvalho's home, and on the right, that is a shot of the school district office. All right, as soon as we get more, we'll make sure to update you here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We want to take you back now to Boston, where a mother and daughter, and let me refresh for you guys. Okay. A mother and daughter have been taken to the hospital. As far as we know, their conditions unknown after a house explosion in Taunton, Massachusetts. That's south of Boston. Let's take you now to NBC 10 Boston for an update.
I heard you ask Oscar a little bit earlier about what the vibe in the neighborhood is, and I would say that people are really expressing a lot of relief at this time in terms of what we heard from both the fire chief, the police chief, and the mayor here in Taunton. The vantage point that we have now in terms of where we're standing in the explosion, etc. You can see they've been pouring. Oh, they've stopped now, but they have been pouring water on top of that. Demolished now 3-family building, but and I'm sure they will resume. The investigation, as you mentioned, is underway. You talked about some of the facts in this case that we now know, and the most important, I should say, is that that mother and her child, 2-year-old, seem to be okay, although I did ask the chief if they were life-threatening, so he didn't really say they were not, so we'll just have to watch and see with their condition and how it happens. But I know LaToya also mentioned that the mother had come out of the house, but then went back inside to get her child, presumably the 2-year-old, and both of them have been taken to the hospital. A lot of folks on the street that I have spoken with, they don't know the family in particular, but they're very concerned about their health and safety and are praying for them out here today. In terms of the investigation, we talked a little bit with the police chief about a third person who lives in the multi-family unit with them, the boyfriend of the mother. He is apparently there. From my understanding, the chief of police didn't seem to think that it was a suspicious situation and that the boyfriend was not there at the time, but 3 do live there. So it doesn't sound like there's anything nefarious that happened at this stage of the game. Of course, the investigation will continue. They will be out here for quite a while, undoubtedly, regarding the investigation, looking to see exactly what happened. The fire chief, he would not say what the cause of the fire is at this point in time, of course, because it really is very, very early in the investigation. But he did say that he thought, gas was perhaps the culprit of what happened out here. Eversource, he said, responded very well and quickly to get out and shut off the gas. They shut off the gas, they dug up the street and shut off the gas to the 3 properties that were involved in this situation. The one in the middle, obviously, that exploded, and then the 2 on either side. One of those homes on one side of the building is vacant, had been vacant. The other does have people that were there, but they were able to get out okay. I was told by a law enforcement official that 8 people in all have been displaced. So there must have been the 3 in the middle and then the 5 in the other building. And again, those folks were able to get out safely. In terms of the situation with the gas, they are now looking to see indeed if that was the case, if it was caused by that. Eversource came up, a lot of them, my understanding is, came up from the Cape because of course they're down there working on the situation there, but came up here, and again, the fire chief said that they responded pretty quickly and have done a good job trying to help them figure out exactly what happened. And again, the other story that we keep hearing about is regards to the condition of the streets. I mean, there is snow everywhere. They received almost 3 feet of snow, here in Taunton as a result of that storm. And, when they pulled into the street here to battle this fire, finding hydrants was not an easy thing. And I talked with a gentleman who lives across the street, and he said a lot of neighbors, they came out, they started digging out the fire hydrants to help the fire department get at what they needed to do to deal with this situation. So it's something that they will be working with and for a long time here, trying to figure exactly what happened. And of course, the most important thing is, the safety and health and well-being of that woman and that 2-year-old child. Throw it back to you guys in the studio.
Again, this is a report here from NBC Boston as they cover that house explosion there in Taunton, Massachusetts, south of Boston. A mother and daughter hurt. They're still working to find out how they are doing right now. Again, they're in the hospital as we continue to gather details on exactly what happened. Let's take a listen in to this reporter again from NBC Boston as he fills us in.
Indeed. I mean, the fire chief says he posts it every year. He said that the state fire marshal posts it every year and lets people know about whether or not, if they do have those vents that are outside, make sure that they're clear. It was a question that I wanted to ask them, but they were sort of rushing us along. And in terms of the investigation, it would have been nice to ask maybe perhaps, I know we had a gas expert on, but I wonder if, backing up of vents, of course, that causes problems with carbon monoxide, but I wonder if something like that might have caused an explosion like this. I'm sure that's something that will be investigated. They will come to a determination at some point in time about what exactly did happen here. The weather may have played a role in this. It certainly is difficult down here to get around on the streets. The homes and the buildings, the snow is shoved up against it, so we don't know for sure exactly what the reason is, but they will definitely look at weather, LaToya, as a possible cause of this situation.
And as soon as we get more information on that house explosion there in Taunton, Massachusetts, just south of Boston, we'll update you here on Live Impact News. Let's come back here at home. A slightly warmer day than yesterday, and it's only going to get warmer. There's some rain chances in our forecast. Let's take a live look. Uptown Charlotte. It looks beautiful outside. Recommend you going outside. It's a better day to walk the dog or take a walk if you need to. Trust me. Let's head to break. We'll be back. We'll have a forecast when we come back on the other side of the break. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. A better feeling day outside here in the area. That's a look of uptown Charlotte. Let's check in with our full forecast. Here's meteorologist Majestic Storm.
Good Wednesday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm, and bottom line, thankfully, it is so much warmer today, even there in the mountains, and it's because we have some breezy winds. You'll probably notice those winds if you've spent any amount of time outside today. They're moving in from the southwest, so that really helps to usher in warmer air, and then overall our temperatures will be much more bearable. It's beautiful out there in the mountains today. Still, a handful of skiers and snowboarders soaking up the sunshine there at Beach Mountain. Meanwhile, here in Charlotte, get ready for increasing cloud coverage as we head towards the afternoon and the evening. But those clouds are also going to help those temperatures from getting all that cold overnight tonight. It's been a mild start to our afternoon, and into the later half of the day, our temperatures will continue to get warmer. Back into the 60s we go. Although because of that breeze, I would still suggest to keep your coat handy. It's been a beautiful start to the day from Monroe to Dallas, Charlotte, even there in Lake Norman. Little cloud coverage here and there, but that's all right. Warmer than yesterday. 44 degrees is all we got to. It's been such a cold start to the week. Our normal high temperature is 59 degrees this time of the year. Today, 61, so at least we're a little bit warmer. This afternoon, as you're picking up those kids after school, I think it's going to still be very nice. Good mix of sun and clouds, little windy, and then increasing clouds. I'd call for mainly cloudy skies by about dinner time. But it's more than the clouds that we're watching. Overnight tonight and into tomorrow, we have another system pushing through that will bring in a very rainy day tomorrow. There's the rest of the day. Notice by 3, 4 o'clock, a lot of clouds will start to move back through. However, our overall highs, they're impressive across the board, not just here in the city, but even there in the mountains. 51 degrees there in Blowing Rock. 52 in Boone, so if you're heading to the mountains today, or if you're just lucky enough to live there, it's still very bearable. 64 in Lenoir, low 60s out towards Hickory, Morganton, a little bit warmer, 64 there. Low 60s from Concord to Albemarle, and then 63 is where you should top off there in Statesville. Now, if you have a little sunshine where you're watching from, lucky you, soak it up while it lasts, because again, by the end of the day today, we are calling for mainly overcast skies. Let's touch on those winds because they are a big part of our weather story today. Moving in from the southwest, gusting anywhere from about 25 to 35 miles an hour. So breezy nonetheless. Into tonight, still there's 10 o'clock tonight, and those winds, they're still not done. By tomorrow morning, still a little breezy, especially south of Charlotte from Rock Hill out towards Monroe, and then eventually those winds come to an end. But then we have to talk about the rain. Only small chances today, but widespread rain moves in by our Thursday. I think really by this weekend, I'm calling for a 10 out of 10, a nearly perfect forecast. A lot of cloud coverage as we're looking at our satellite and radar, and again, could see a couple of random sprinkles pop up, but besides that, I don't have much worry for our forecast today. As we're heading into tonight, you can see about 10 o'clock, rain showers start to move in across the mountains. 5 o'clock Thursday morning, if you're one of our early risers, you have wet area roadways, and that bus stop forecast could be very soggy. I think by the time the kids are coming home from school for our Thursday, the rain will be all said and done. Now, how much rain are we talking about? Most of our models are indicating that we'll pick up at least an inch of rain. That'd be nice because we desperately need it. And then start making some nice weekend plans. Upper 60s, low to mid 70s, both Saturday and Sunday. I mean, might be a good weekend to fire up the barbecue, head out to the golf course, or maybe just take the kids to the park. Here's our Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast. Very mild conditions today, but keep the rain gear handy tomorrow. You'll need it.
All right, let's head to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. We want to go now. Check this out. This is I-77 South here in Charlotte. The I-277 on-ramp, actually.
Yeah, we've got 277 coming down the right side of the screen, Nick, like you're coming from uptown. And then the ramp that enters in from the left-hand side of the screen is the traffic that is looping up from I-77.
That's what I thought. This angle always confuses me.
Yeah.
But there, you see it right there in the middle of your screen. That's a piece of concrete, I believe. It looks like an object there. So we're taking a look at that just in case. Just in case. That's all I really can tell you. But we haven't seen, and we've been looking at this for about 10 minutes now. It looks like drivers are avoiding it. But if you are in the area and you are watching, you know you have to make your way through this way on the I-277 ramp.
We think the Department of Transportation knows about it because this camera is normally zoomed way further out. We sometimes use it to show you the skyline or the 277 I-77 interchange, and as you can see, it's zoomed way in. So somebody zoomed it in.
So just be cautious until it is picked up and it is off the road there. Again, we will continue to keep our eye on this piece of concrete there on the on-ramp. All right, so we want to go now to eastern North Carolina, Pitt County to be exact. This is video of the scene of after 18 people have to go to the hospital after a Pitt County solar plant evacuated for a suspected carbon monoxide leak. Emergency officials say well over a dozen employees, as I just mentioned, were hospitalized following a suspected carbon monoxide leak at a Pitt County solar plant. Pitt County Emergency Management says that 18 people in the hospital following that evacuation at the Boviet solar plant on Sugg Parkway. Again, that's video there on your screen. And so this call came in shortly before 10:30. And the county says a state medical assistance team bus was deployed with a medical team along with a regional hazmat team based in Williamston. A reporter there on scene says over 100 people were evacuated from that plant and into the parking lot. So you see that emergency response there after that suspected carbon monoxide leak there. We'll continue to keep our eye on the latest developments out of Pitt County. All right, so we want to head now to Jacksonville, Florida, where the U.S. Civil Rights Trail is expanding this year with the addition of historic sites in Virginia, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Jacksonville, Florida. Let's take a listen in to the event that's happening right now.
There were some leaders and some legacies, the Reverend J.C. Sams, the Rutledge Pearson, the Boomerangs. I don't know if but when I started to look at the history of Jacksonville in the civil rights movement, the African American church played a major role. And I think it's befitting that we unveil and utilize this African American church here for the initiation and the unveiling of the Civil Rights Trail here in Jacksonville. Why don't you give yourself a great round of applause? But before I sit down, I just want to personally thank all of those who persevered through all of the saying it couldn't be done, it wouldn't be done. I want to thank Miss Pat and all the efforts that she has put forth. I want to thank Mayor Deegan for seeing this vision that was cast a long time ago. I want to thank Council President.
All right, so we want to shift now to Washington, D.C. What's happening right now, this just got underway. Senate Democrats, House Democrats are speaking right now. This comes just hours after the president held his State of the Union address. Let's take a listen in.
But don't take our word for it. A recent CNN poll said that 70% of Americans say Trump isn't paying attention to their priorities. But instead of listening to the people that elected him, he's doubling down on his unpopular, harmful, and costly policies. Democrats have already used the few tools that we have in the minority to try to undo some of his damage, including releasing the Epstein files, restoring federal worker bargaining rights, and extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. If this is what we can do in the minority, just think what we can do in the majority. Donald Trump's address showed why it's critical that Democrats take back the House and make Hakeem Jeffries the next speaker. And the work that we do this week will help make that a reality. Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. It is an honor to work with Chairman Aguilar in putting on this issues conference. We have a cost of living emergency in America. The affordability crisis is crushing the hopes and dreams of the American people. And what was Donald Trump's response? He mocked Americans and the term affordability. He was mocking people who were experiencing monthly bills that were far too high, grocery prices that were increasing. The American people were drowning in debt. And Donald Trump didn't want to talk about it. Democrats are going to talk about it this entire issues conference. We are laser focused on the affordability crisis and how to tackle it. And the parts of the speech that Donald Trump did talk about prices, he just flat out lied. Inflation is actually not going down. The last inflation report showed that core CPI accelerated from December to January. Another inflation report on PCE, which is the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge, showed that it increased above expectations to 3%. So Donald Trump is lying, and the American people can either believe what Donald Trump says, or they can believe the monthly bills, but they cannot believe both. And the person that's going to lead this caucus in tackling the affordability crisis is Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and I'm so honored to have him come up, because under Leader Jeffries, we have become the most effective minority party in U.S. history. We have passed 3 discharge petitions off the House floor, unheard of, stopped multiple stupid Republican rules, forced bipartisan congressional subpoenas, and Leader Jeffries is going to continue leading us until we win this November. Leader Jeffries.
Well, thank you, Chairman Aguilar, and thank you, Vice Chair Lieu, for your leadership and for bringing us together at the 2026 Issues Conference. We gather, of course, in the immediate aftermath of the so-called State of the Union address that took place last night. That was a disgraceful performance. Donald Trump hit a new low. He didn't communicate anything meaningful to the American people. There was no substance in that speech, but a lot of snake oil. No vision for the future of the country, but a lot of vitriol. There were no policy prescriptions designed to make life better for everyday Americans, but it was full of partisanship. That State of the Union speech by Donald Trump was a disgrace. And now that we're on the other side of it, it's going to be a sprint to November 3rd. House Democrats are on the verge of a takeover. The break's over. For these MAGA extremists, it's over. Because the American people know that Donald Trump and House Republicans have failed the American people. They failed on the economy. They failed on health care. They failed on immigration enforcement. They failed to make life better for everyday Americans, breaking every single promise that they made, including, most significantly, that they were going to lower costs on day one. Costs haven't gone down. As Vice Chair Lieu explained, costs have gone up, out of control. Far too many people struggling here in America to live paycheck to paycheck, cannot thrive, and can barely survive. And so we're here at this issues conference to talk amongst each other and with outside stakeholders and experts about a bold, meaningful, transformational path forward to address the Republican affordability crisis here in America and make life better for working class Americans, for middle class Americans, and for everyday Americans who were committed to fighting for each and every day, to drive down the high cost of living, to fix our broken health care system, and to deliver an immigration enforcement approach that is fair, just, and meaningful, that doesn't target violently American citizens or law-abiding immigrant families, but targets violent felons who are here unlawfully. We believe that the best is yet to come in this country, but it won't be delivered by Donald Trump and Republican sycophants in the House and in the Senate. It will come when Democrats take back control of the House, laying a foundation to end this national nightmare in the United States of America and continue our country's march toward a more perfect union. It's now my great honor to yield to my friend, my partner, my classmate, and the whip on the Democratic side of the House who's doing an extraordinary job from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the Honorable Catherine Clark.
Thank you so much, Mr. Leader. Thanks to our phenomenal leadership team, and especially to Chairman Aguilar and Vice Chair Liu for bringing us together once again. And thanks to all of you for joining us this week. What a timely press conference and issues conference after the meltdown that we watched last night. Democrats are showing the American people that they deserve better. A better economy, better schools, better health care, a better and more affordable future. Just look at the past year. Donald Trump promised to lower costs on day one. Instead, the average American family has paid $1,700 more due to tariffs. In my district at home, that's $2,200. He declared last night that we are in a golden age, and that is certainly true if your last name is Trump. But for folks at home, prices are up, rent is up, layoffs are up, wage growth is down, and we're seeing women pushed out of the job market because they can't find affordable childcare. And none of this is an accident. It is a policy choice. Republicans have chosen to break their promises to regular families. They've chosen to keep their promises to a handful of billionaires. And they've chosen to enrich the few at the expense of the many. And the American people have taken note. Democrats are offering a different choice. We are offering solutions that we will be discussing and expanding in the next few days. We're looking at an agenda that can cut child care costs to $15 a day, an agenda that cuts premiums with a permanent health care tax credit, an agenda that cuts housing costs and builds new affordable homes, an agenda that cuts utility bills by making corporate users pay their fair share, and an agenda that empowers Americans to win bigger paychecks with a union. Americans are voting for Democrats because we are fighting for them, fighting for their health care, to drive down the price of groceries, and to stamp out corruption and self-enrichment. That's our focus. And that is why we are going to win next year. And we are so fortunate to have our chairwoman of the DCCC, Susan DelBene, at the helm. She is a true leader who has been recruiting and supporting our candidates and incumbents around the country. And
all right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. That was House Dems as they reacted to the State of the Union address. We're following a little bit of breaking news. About an hour and a half away from Charlotte. This is in Greensboro. This is along I-40, not too far from PTI Airport in Greensboro, near Gallimore Dairy Road, if you're familiar with the area. There appears to be a fire to the left of your screen. Right now, what we can see, it looks like the grass is charred, and obviously you see emergency response vehicles and that on-ramp that is blocked off right there on I-40 near Gallimore Dairy Road. Again, hard to tell exactly what is happening right now towards the left of your screen, but you see that charred grass and you see the first responders there. But it looks like it's not impacting traffic too much. Correct me if I'm wrong, James.
No, I think you're right. I think it's just the ramp closure here. But It came in as a vehicle fire. As you mentioned, we can see some charred grass on the side. And so I'm just thinking about those dry drought conditions we have across the area. So whether this was a vehicle fire that spread to the adjacent grass there, or maybe a brush fire in its infancy, just how dry things are. And you can see the emergency response out there right now as they work to contain that.
All right, we'll continue to keep our eye on that. Again, that is in Greensboro, I-40 near the airport there, PTI Airport. All right, let's come back here at home and let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. We are following some breaking news out of NASA. James, what do you have for me?
So, Nick, you might remember that Crew 11, which was a NASA-run crew of 4 astronauts on the International Space Station, came home early in what was NASA's first medical evacuation of the space station. This came after an astronaut experienced a medical emergency while on the International Space Station. We have been telling you we didn't know who it was, and we didn't know what the nature of that medical emergency was. In a new statement out from NASA, we now know who on that crew suffered the medical emergency. NASA is relaying a statement from NASA SpaceX Crew 11 pilot Mike Fink that reads, "On January 7th, while aboard the International Space Station, I experienced a medical event that required immediate attention from my incredible crewmates. Thanks to their quick response and the guidance of our NASA flight surgeons, my status quickly stabilized." He goes on to say, "After further evaluation, NASA determined that the safest course was an early return for Crew 11. Not an emergency, but a careful carefully coordinated plan to be able to take advantage of advanced medical imaging not available on the space station. On January 15th, we splashed down off the coast of San Diego after an amazing 5.5-month mission. And we did just see that Crew 12 arrived at the International Space Station. What normally would have been a handoff where the two crews were overlapping, that did not happen for the first time because Crew 11 came home early. Now, as Mike Fink says in his statement, that their return was, quote, not an emergency. I think the distinction, Nick, is that they did wait several days to stabilize him and bring him home as opposed to leaving right away. They waited for the next safest return course. And I think that's the distinction between what would have been and what was not an emergency, in that they felt like they had gotten him into a good enough place where they could wait a couple days to the prime time to return home, as opposed to doing like a quick evacuation of the medical of the space station. But again, it's still NASA's first ever medical evacuation from space, the first we've seen at the International Space Station, and now we know who experienced that medical emergency. But notably, Nick, it does not say what the medical emergency was.
All right, thank you for that, filling us in. Also, some more breaking news that we are following. Matthews Police, they just posted on social media, on Facebook, a traffic alert. Pleasant Plains Road at Wickerby Court is closed due to a vehicle crash. Please use Old Monroe Road and Weddington Road as an alternate route. Again, this is from Matthews Police Department, posted about an hour ago. Traffic alert on Pleasant Plains Road at Wickerby Court. Closed because of a vehicle crash. All right, so we want to go now back to D.C. House Democrats, they're reacting to last night's State of the Union address. Let's take a listen in.
Mostly in red states that they will try, voters will come out. And voters will recoil because they see what's happening. They see that Republicans are trying to stop them from exercising their franchise, because the only way they win, the only way they carry forward policies that only look after their billionaire class and themselves, is by changing the election structure to favor themselves. That's what we're up against. We're very mindful. We're very clear-eyed. We're honest about the litigation efforts underway. Joe Morelli is leading the delegation as well to talk about other scenarios that could happen between now and November that will affect the elections, to make sure that we have the protections in place, combined with the voter protection safeguards that we are employing at the DCCC and around the country to ensure that every vote cast is counted. Susan Delbene?
First, if you think you're winning with the American people, if you think they agree with you on policy and that the voters are with you, then you really don't focus on rigging the system. It is clear, poll after poll, talking to people on the ground, affordability being the number one issue. Republicans are not interested in what people think. So how do they try to win? They try to rig the system. We've seen it with the redistricting. People hate that across the country. When people have a say, like they did in California, they strongly object to what Republicans are trying to do. People want to pick their representatives. They don't want politicians to pick their voters. That's what Republicans are trying to do. So we have mapped out all the different scenarios. We are fighting hard. We're going to use every tool in the toolbook to fight back. But the most powerful thing we have are incredible candidates who are authentic, independent-minded, talking about the issues that matter on the ground. That's why we overperformed last cycle and picked up seats, and absolutely why we will continue to win across the country. People are tired of what they see from Republicans, and they want folks who are going to stand up, who aren't going to be a rubber stamp for Donald Trump. So they do. They have tons of resources, and we will have the resources to get out there, to get our message out. And when we have strong candidates and we're on the side of the American people, we absolutely will win and take back the gavels.
Thank you very much for doing this. I just wanted to ask about the State of the Union last night. I know that most of Democratic leadership went, but Whip Clark, you decided to sit this one out or not be physically in the chamber for it. I just wanted to ask how you made that decision and what, if anything, we should read into kind of that difference of approach in Democratic leadership.
Thank you for that. I decided not to go the State of the Union because I wanted to hear the actual State of the Union from my constituents. And what I'd seen from Donald Trump is continuing to lie and misrepresent. But believe me when I say there is no space between us. And however you chose to express it, whether it's going there and being in silent defiance, or whether it choosing to do what I did, which was have a Zoom with small business owners who told me the struggle they are having, not only meeting with increased prices, but with the havoc that is being created for them in keeping and finding employees with the reign of terror that ICE is causing in our communities. Whether it was the teacher from Framingham, Massachusetts, who talked about the impact of the dismantling of public schools we're seeing from this administration, and also the fear of students who are staying home because they're so fearful about being picked up by ICE. Even American citizens who are just scared because of their ethnicity, that they will be deported. I talked to two scientists who talked about the impact of the research cuts and how the cures and hopes that they have been working on are now in a freezer in a lab and not going to be able to come to fruition, and that we are giving away our position globally as a leader in innovation. So there's no light between us in leadership or in the Democratic caucus on whose side we are on. The State of the Union should be about the American people, and that is what the Democratic caucus showed strongly in the chamber and outside of the chamber last night.
For Leader Jeffries, last night we saw a variety of different protests of the State of the Union, and Congressman Hal Green was escorted from the chamber. What's your message to the members who maybe didn't quite heed your advice to take their protests outside?
I thought the Democratic response was appropriately restrained and forceful at the same period of time, and that was obvious to anybody who was watching. Obvious to anyone who was watching in terms of the members who were there. With respect to Representative Green's response, it was both appropriate and restrained at the same period of time. Now, his message that he communicated was obviously on point, but it was far less profane than my reaction to the very same racist video that Donald Trump felt compelled to produce. And I think, for us, as we had asked everyone to do, if you're going to go, we will express ourselves in a manner consistent with being in the House chamber, and that was done. And if you're not going to go, that's also a statement of defiance as it relates to the lies that Donald Trump was clearly peddling to the American people. And so we're on the backside of the State of the Union address. It did nothing to help out Donald Trump's case to the American people. He's falling apart. His poll numbers are an extinction level event. It's over for these extremists. They've lost 14 months consecutively of meaningful elections. Literally every single election that has been held since Donald Trump's first month in office in January of 2025 has been won by Democrats. And so I know people are struggling to find a reason to pierce the fact that the American people have clearly decided it's time to throw the MAGA extremists overboard and elect Democrats. But we're going to stay the course. We're going to be disciplined and focused as we were yesterday. We're going to continue to win the day and win the week and win the month, win the hearts and minds of the American people, win the year, and then win back the House.
Same tough Nick Wu questions, different outlets. So thanks. Congratulations, Nick. Yeah. Scott.
Thank you. Another question for the leader.
No more questions for him.
Well, you guys were sitting next to each other, I saw, and probably could hear the best in the chamber what Ms. Tlaib and Ms. Omar were yelling at the president. The president this afternoon has taken to Truth Social to call those congresswomen lunatics and says, quote, we should send them back from where they came as fast as possible. What is your response to the president?
These are U.S. citizens, members of Congress who are federally elected office holders. Where they come from is their districts, and they go back quite a bit to their districts. Those two members are as in touch with the pulse of their communities as any two members we have in the chamber. We couldn't hear a lot of what was said from our seats. But look, I think the frustration all of us had is, where was the vision? Where was it someone who could be a uniter, who could bring people together? Not that this president has ever done that, but, hope springs eternal. But we get what we get. And true to form, he was who he is, and that is divisive. And so I think our members reacted to that. But our members are from their districts, and their home is in the Democratic caucus. That's what we know. And we will have their back, and we will stand with them because they continue to bring back the thoughts and reflections of their districts and their communities. You want to?
I'll just say the xenophobic rhetoric of Donald Trump, directed at two members of the House Democratic Caucus, of course, is sadly not surprising, but it's disgraceful. It's unpresidential, unpatriotic, and un-American. But that's Donald Trump, and that was on full display for the American people yesterday. I mean, he did not help his case. He did not help the case of the Republican sycophants who were just standing up and down like lapdogs. It was embarrassing to see that he spoke for almost 2 hours, less than 2 minutes on the affordability crisis that the American people are dealing with right now. But we're going to be spending the next several days talking about our ironclad commitment
All right, so that is a live look there. House Democrats reacting to the State of the Union address from last night. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. So right now we are getting a clearer picture on a recent ICE arrest at the Mecklenburg County Courthouse. Let's send it over to Jesse Pierre, who is following the story for us. So Jesse, what can you tell us?
So I spoke to the attorney for one of the four. So 4 people yesterday were detained by ICE agents at the Mecklenburg County Courthouse. 3 of them, court records show, had active cases and hearings during the at the Mecklenburg County Courthouse. And the attorney I spoke with, he's a criminal defense attorney. He says his client was detained before he even got to see a judge, before he even had his hearing happen. And so, he had some concerns about that. One, because, there is a judicial process that wasn't able to happen, right? And so the charges that he was charged with, we don't know if he would be found guilty or not, and so forth. He also shared how, this incident impedes in the judicial process in general. Now, ICE agents are not breaking any law by going into the courthouse and detaining anyone or anything like that. There was a directive that was really put back in place. It was already the case, but it was halted during the last administration. But during this administration, that allows ICE agents to continue going into courthouses and detain anyone that they believe, whether they have a warrant or, this person's here illegally and so forth. And so I spoke with the attorney. I have different comments from him. I also spoke to organization that works with immigration advocacy group. She also felt that, this is creating fear and chaos, especially when it's happening in the courthouse. They're really just looking for better ways that ICE agents can go about this process, because when it comes to the courthouse, it just kind of their concern is that people aren't going to show up for court cases, or people are not going to, call 911 if they need help, or they're not going to be, if they are a witness to a crime, for example, they won't come because they would be afraid that they would be detained in the courthouse. So kind of like a domino effect of concerns when it comes to these 4 arrests. The other thing the attorney said is he, at this point, doesn't know where his client was detained. Again, he had a criminal, he did have an active case, a hearing today. So it's unclear, when that would be able to continue, because now that he's been detained, who knows if he'll be deported or what the process is going to go with that, I did reach out to Mecklenburg County Sheriff too, to find out also, was ICE agents, was the agency in contact with them prior to this enforcement, and Mecklenburg County Sheriff says yes, that one of their sergeants was contacted ahead of time, and they expressed their plans to arrest the 4 that were arrested.
And that's one of the things, communication has been one of the things that Sheriff Gary McFadden has highlighted in recent months regarding federal agents. Jesse, thank you. You can catch Jesse at 4 and 5 with a full look at this story. Again, Jesse, thank you. Be safe.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, let's head to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. We want to head now to Capitol Hill, where we are hearing from Senate Republicans. That is Senator John Thune. Let's take a listen in.
It was really, really effective, both in terms of tone and in terms of substance. And I think he highlighted some of the accomplishments that we've had working with him, Republican House, Republican Senate, and the majorities, and was able to go through some of the things that we've done, from securing the border to providing monumental, historic tax relief to the American people, and making sure that our national security interests are met so that we can maintain a safe country. And obviously a lot of his focus was on safer streets, more money in your pocket, and new opportunities to get ahead for working families. So good evening, but obviously a lot more to do, and he actually laid out sort of an agenda which we look forward to working on. One of the things that will be immediately on that agenda is a housing bill, which gets at the heart of the affordability issue, particularly for younger Americans. And we've got a bill that's out of the Senate Banking Committee that we hope to get teed up for consideration. We'll try and get on that this week, or at least set up a vote to get on it next week. And I think that would be a very substantial issue that we can deal with. I also think that the issue of energy is a big factor in the cost of everything. You're talking about the affordability issue, and we've got some ideas and proposals to deal with that. I think technology and innovation is also something, artificial intelligence. I think there's a path forward perhaps on some legislation to deal with that. We just heard from some folks who are experts in that field, but there's just a lot of work to do. And obviously our focus, as I said, is going to be safer streets, more money in people's pockets, and new opportunities for working families to get ahead. And those are the things that in the next few weeks and months that we'll be focused on. But we would hope at least that there would be some Democrats who would be willing to work with us. These are not partisan issues, nor is the issue of dealing with waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. That's also something I think that is a real opportunity for us to address. And all of those ought to have bipartisan support. These are not partisan issues, and I'm hoping that there are some Democrats who want to do what is in the best interest of the American people, and get away from kind of what we saw last week, which was essentially sort of two Americas when you observed what was happening in that chamber and the way the Democrats were reacting to what the president had to say. Whoever the president is, Democrat or Republican, you ought to have people who want to do what's in the best interest of the American people, and I hope there's still some Democrats around who want to do that. Questions?
Based on what you heard at the briefing yesterday, do you think Iran represents an imminent threat to U.S. national security? Do you support limited strikes, or would you support boots on the ground if necessary for regime change?
Well, I'm listening, as I think, and observing, obviously, to the descriptions of the circumstances on the ground. I think you've seen significant accumulation of assets in that region. And I think that is in response to a belief that there is a national security interest involved here when it comes to not only our homeland, but also a lot of our allies in the region. And I think that the president, I don't know that he's made any decisions about this, but I think that he is preparing for contingencies and is pursuing his policy of peace through strength and working with allies in the region to ensure that we prevent Iran from ever having a nuclear capability. But they also have a lot of conventional capabilities that represent a threat, certainly to the neighborhood and to a lot of our allies. So I think working through that, but I don't have anything more to report on that.
What did you make of some of the behavior from Democrats in the chamber last night, refusing to stand at some point, some of the outbursts?
I thought it was I was like watching two Americas. I was watching a celebration of the, both men's and women's Olympic team gold medals, celebrating people in the audience, one of whom was a South Dakota guy who's lived 100 years and a decorated fighter pilot. And just watching the Democrats, I think you saw there a party that is for open borders, a party that's for sanctuary cities, a party that is basically pro-defund law enforcement, a party that's for higher taxes and more government and more regulations and less American energy. I mean, I think, and so those were the issues the president addressed, and clearly I think you saw in the chamber us as Republicans expressing support for that. But that contrast when he asked the question and asked people to stand up, and every Democrat was seated I don't know how you explain that, but we are living literally in two Americas. And the president's agenda is the one that is going to build on the successes of the past, which he talked about, our heritage, our belief in freedom, and creating more opportunities for the future for the American people, whether that's on the economic front, whether, as I said, it's safer streets, and just new opportunities for working Americans to get ahead. That's what this president's focused on, and the Democrats couldn't be farther from that objective.
On the SAVE Act, you said on Fox earlier that you were going to wait until the government was reopened, DHS funding was restored before you voted on that. Is that the case? And then also, what is your message to the Republicans in your conference who are pushing over and over again that you can do this with the talking filibuster?
Well, there are a couple things about that. One is, once we get on, if we were to go down that path, it's very hard to pivot and get back to open up the government. I frankly think we ought to. We need to make sure that DHS, TSA, Coast Guard, FEMA, all those agencies are funded. And so I'm hopeful there will be a breakthrough on that. That's going to require some, obviously cooperation from the Democrats, which we haven't seen a lot of so far. But we want to get to the SAVE Act. We also, as I mentioned, we've got a housing bill that we can pivot back and forth to if we get a deal to open up the government. That's harder to do once you're in the throes of a talking filibuster. The talking filibuster issue is one on which there is not certainly a unified Republican conference, and there would have to be. If you go down that path, you're talking about the need to table what are going to be numerous amendments and an ability to keep 50 Republicans unified pretty much on every single vote. And there isn't the support for doing that at this point. As I've said, and we will get on it, and we will have a vote on the SAVE Act. The context of that, the process in which we consider it is still an open question, but one that we're having conversations about, but clearly not a unified position, at least among Republicans in the Senate.
But it sounds like that vote might be subject to a 60-vote threshold. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's obviously a very real possibility.
On tariffs specifically, the president last night said that he believes he can continue the current 15% tariffs without Congress. Are you concerned that runs afoul of Article 2?
I think there's authority that the president has, and there are statutes that have delegated certain trade authorities, tariff authorities, to the president, and which they're exploring. 232, 301, those have been used in the past. This particular one, which was ruled unconstitutional by the court, is one that they had seized upon to implement some of the tariffs that are currently underway. The ones you're talking about, I think, are temporary and would have to be at some point reauthorized or re-upped. So we'll see. I mean, at this point, I think there's some open questions around the tariff issue. Clearly the court's decision complicated it, but I think there are other authorities the president can use, and I think the administration is exploring those right now.
Does Congress need to reassert itself, though?
Well, I mean, I think, the Article 1, Congress has when it comes to taxes, trade, or tariffs and duties and things like that, yes. But as I've said, historically, there are examples where Congress has delegated some of that authority through statute to the executive branch. And I think most of us agree that the president can use, and it is a tool, that can be used to achieve better trade deals, to develop reciprocity with countries that haven't been treating us fairly, to achieve national security objectives. I think there's some fairly broad authority too there constitutionally. But I think what you'll see them doing is exploring the specific statutory authorities that Congress has delegated to the Article 2 branch of the government, to the administration through the years.
Do you think that the Trump administration can or should pay TSA workers during the shutdown? Obviously, they tried to find ways to do that for defense during the last shutdown. What do you think about that?
I think anything you can do to keep people employed. Government shutdowns nobody wins, and you've heard me say that many times. This is an example, really, that we ought to be able to figure this out. We had a deal, and that deal has now been voted down twice on the floor of the Senate by the Democrats. And so the White House, I think, has been in good faith trying to come to the table and work out some of the differences that the Democrats have, but in ways that don't jeopardize or undermine the ability of our law enforcement officials to do their jobs and to do them in a way that keeps them safe. So it's a ongoing conversation. But to your question, if they can figure out a way to pay government employees, absolutely. I mean, these are people who have jobs and have commitments and have families, and you know, it's going to be really unfortunate if we get to a point where, and I hope we don't, where people aren't getting paid because the Democrats continue to insist on changes to things that are just not going to be feasible or tenable if you want to have law enforcement in this country with the ability to be able to do their jobs. Thank you.
All right, Senate Republicans, that was Senator John Thune speaking there on behalf of Senate Republicans, reacting to the State of the Union address that happened last night that you saw here on WCNC Plus and over on WCNC Charlotte. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We want to head now to Concord, where we are hearing from a mom after an incident at a daycare there in Concord. Anna King is following up on the story. What can you tell us, Anna?
Yeah, so we kind of covered this story last week when the teacher here, or former daycare worker here, was charged with a misdemeanor. So today we got to speak with the mom who walked us through finding out what happened. So pretty much her daughter, her 3-year-old daughter, last September is when the incident happened. Her 3-year-old daughter was sat down on hot glue up on the table. And the daycare worker said that the child was not sitting down. So she put hot glue on the chair and then sat her daughter down. And then
All right, so that's Anna King. I have some audio issues there, so we'll get back to Anna shortly or at some point in the afternoon. Again, she's following up on the incident involving a daycare worker and a child there. Again, she spoke with the mom. We'll follow up with Anna as soon as we get that audio issue worked out. All right, let's go to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We want to go back to Capitol Hill now. We heard from Senate Republicans. We're hearing from Senate Democrats. This is Democrat Chuck Schumer, Senator Chuck Schumer from New York. Let's take a listen to him.
You won't say what it is. Okay. I know you do. Well, you can do your own queries. Alex and Amy.
Yes, that's what it is.
He's first. Okay, thank you, everybody. This has been a very erudite. All right. Anyway, let me thank Senators Klobuchar and Padilla for joining us. Look, what the country saw last night was not a State of the Union. It was Trump's state of delusion. For nearly 2 hours, the president inflated his ego, rewrote reality, and offered zero solutions to the problems American families are struggling with every night. I'll bet there were just as many people last night discussing how to pay the bills as there were watching the State of the Union. President's in a bubble. He doesn't have a clue about what the average American people are going through. He just didn't ignore the affordability crisis. He mocked it. Can you imagine sitting down at the table and say, we can't meet our electric bill, what's going to happen? And you hear the President of the United States is mocking your inability to pay because prices have gone up. While President Trump stood up there congratulating himself, Americans were confronting the reality. Ground beef up 11%, coffee up 41%, rents up, health care costs up, electricity up. Families are spending this year over $1,700 more because of Trump's tariff tax. And he's gloating about it. He's gloating about it. Families don't need a 2-hour speech. They need relief at the checkout counter, especially a speech that hardly mentioned any solutions for the American people. You know, look, Trump spent a lot of time praising himself. He patted himself on the back so often that I thought he might fall down. But the American people didn't want hype. They didn't want the kind of stuff he did. And he lied. He just lies. He makes it up. He said we've gained manufacturing jobs. We've lost over 100,000 manufacturing jobs since he became president. He said job creation is on the rise. No. It's at the lowest point in 20 years outside of a recession. I think it was 2003 that job creation on a percentage basis was as low. And then, incredibly, Trump put J.D. Vance in charge of investigating corruption. Well, in one way, he's a good choice because if he wants to investigate corruption, he doesn't need a task force. He doesn't even need a car. All he has to do is walk down the hall and start investigating his boss, where there's huge amounts of corruption. He can start with the billionaires bankrolling Trump's vanity projects. He can look at corrupt pardons that the president gave. He can look at the luxury jet gifted from the Middle East. And most of all, glaring of all, he can ask the president why the Epstein files, all of them, haven't been released. Last night was all hype and no help. If you're a family hoping to hear how your costs would go down, you got nothing. If you're a worker hoping to hear how your job would be protected, you got nothing. If you're a voter hoping for accountability, you got deflection. Last night's speech was an utter failure for Trump. All hype, all fluff, not what the American people who are having trouble paying for beef and so many other things wanted. And just lastly, the contrast between Donald Trump and Governor Spanberger and Senator Padilla, who gave a great speech as well. They talked about lowering costs. They talked about protecting rights. They talked about restoring integrity. Compare Trump's speech to their speech, and Americans will know why it's Democrats fighting for them, and it's easy to figure out why people prefer Democrats to Republicans when it comes to all of the polling data we have seen. Senator Klobuchar.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. So I think all you have to do is listening to the opening salvo of Donald Trump's State of the Union last night to know that he is wildly out of touch where so many Americans are. These were his words. He said that Americans feel better, richer, stronger than ever before. He said that is the state of our union. And I think we know very well that isn't true. You've all seen the numbers of where Americans feel, so it's not just anecdotes. But I thought the most interesting thing that I did yesterday was listen to some of the guests that my colleagues had brought to the State of the Union, including Senator Duckworth's guest, a guy named Jeremy from rural Illinois, whose premiums had gone up so much that he had to change health care plans because, of course, Donald Trump's and the Republican Party's failure to do anything about extending the tax credits. He then moved on to saying he had to get a plan with this huge deductible. He found out he had diabetes. He didn't even know if he can go to the doctor. And he started crying at what was, let's face it, press conferences that we have all the time, and he couldn't stop crying. That's the guy I thought of when I was sitting there. I thought of Senator Warnock's guest, who's trying to run a rural hospital and have seen these Medicaid cuts. I thought about my guest, a guy named Sean Severson, who is the last thing a political activist you have ever met. He is a brewer from Moorhead, Minnesota, on the North Dakota border, and he is just trying to run a business with 9 employees, and he has been walloped by these tariffs and walloped by the attacks on Canada and the lack of Canadian tourists coming to northern Minnesota and across the country. That is the real State of the Union for so many people. And since the last Tuesday, when Chuck met with all of you, we have seen the tariff decision by the Supreme Court. And for a lot of the senators, we have seen already our small businesses coming to us and say, wait a minute, he's doing this again. He's doubling down. Now there's going to be more uncertainty. We have over 100 changes to tariffs already, and it's only going to get worse. So that chaos that we're talking about, it's not just not enough staffing at the VA or farmers trying to get loans at the USDA or the horror of 3,000 ICE agents roaming the streets in the metro, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and also, by the way, in our rural areas. It is also about the economic chaos by this man's policies. So what Abigail Spanberger and Alex Padilla asked yesterday was basically, is Trump working for you? And the clear answer for so many in this country is no. And what I was most struck by at the State of the Union, and I'll end with this, 107 minutes, 1 hour and 47 minutes, and he spent 2.9 minutes on affordability. These are NBC statistics. They must be correct. And 3.8 minutes on health care. So that's what we're dealing with right now, with someone who's the #1 things on people's minds he barely even talked about. So when you ask me what's the State of the Union, I'd say you better listen to Americans and not to the guy that was in the House chamber for 2 hours last night.
Senator Padilla, who our caucus gave him huge plaudits today because he did such a good job. Even those of us who didn't understand all of his speech thought he did a great job.
Thank you. Well, I'll give away the secret. My response to the State of the Union was not too unlike Governor Spanberger. We focused on some of the same themes, and before I get to those, let me just say, going into the State of the Union, a lot of people asked, including many of you yesterday, what we were expecting. And we predicted, well, there's going to be some lies, and there's going to be some more lies, and probably some more lies on top of that, in addition to some misrepresentations and distractions from the real-world harmful impacts of the Trump and Republican agenda and track record from this last year. And unfortunately, we were right. Lies after misrepresentations for the 1 hour and 47 minutes. Not a prioritization of what we think is important. Governor Spanberger and I both spoke to the challenge that so many working families are having just paying the bills. You know, Donald Trump is a president who campaigned on bringing down prices, and he's done anything but. Under him, prices continue to go up for groceries, for housing, for utilities, electricity costs. You try to talk about that, but the numbers are real. Electricity costs are on the rise. Couldn't help but also acknowledge the fear and the terror that so many communities and families across the country are feeling with the out-of-control operations by the Department of Homeland Security. Yeah, ICE and CBP agents, not just detaining people with judicial warrants, actually entering people's homes without a judicial warrant, the violence and cruelty with which they're holding people indiscriminately, including a lot of legal immigrants with work authorization, including citizens of the United States, including veterans. And we're increasingly becoming aware of the horrendous conditions inside a lot of these detention centers, which they're working feverishly to expand. And let me be clear, it's not just about immigration. It's about our fundamental rights being violated as they pursue a mass deportation agenda with unnecessary quotas. When people are detained, arrested, or even shot and killed in Minnesota for exercising their First Amendment rights, that's a danger to our democracy. When people are being detained without that judicial warrant that is normally required, that is a danger to our democracy. And that leads me to the third area that I emphasized yesterday. Elections. Trump said it loudly and clearly. He wants to take over elections in America. Gee, I wonder why. He's still not over the fact that he lost the 2020 election. And they've been setting the stage for months, weaponizing the Department of Justice to demand the voter rolls and the personal information of voters across the country. This suggestion that he wants to eliminate the vote by mail opportunity, this executive order failed and now SAVE Act legislative attempt to not require voter ID. Let's be real as to what it is. It's a voter purge, voter suppression piece of legislation. The Republican Trump record has been so bad, not just unpopular. Y'all have seen the polls. It's been so damaging to American families that their only chance to hold on to power this November is to rig the elections. You'd think they'd see an opening and pivot on policy and work with us, whether it's reining in out-of-control ICE and CBP agents by imposing common-sense reforms, or walking away from the illegal and counterproductive tariff policies that are raising costs on all of us. The president doubled down. And we're going to double down on our legislative efforts, our legal efforts, our outreach to the American people, and we're going to get ready to vote this November and bring about real change. In closing, I just want to emphasize that theme of elections from here. I'm excusing myself to a spotlight hearing that we're having, Democrats on the Rules Committee, shedding light on what is happening with these threats and what it means, not just for us in Congress, but for state and local officials. We have with us the Attorney General of California, Rob Bonta. We have one of the commissioners from Fulton County, Georgia, where Tulsi Gabbard, the head of intelligence, joined the FBI in a raid to confiscate materials from the 2020 election. They got to stop living in the past. Accept the laws. Let's work together to improve people's lives. That's what we're going to stand up for. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Alex.
Leader Schimmer?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you walk us through where negotiations over DHS funding stand? Have you talked to the White House who has plans to? And would you support pulling it apart to fund Coast Guard, FEMA, other avenues, and separate it out as some in the House of the Bill? Hugh Jeffries supports that.
Let me say two things. First, we sent them a proposal a week ago Monday. We still haven't heard back. Crickets. And so it's in their court. As for getting this done, we all want to see TSA and the other agencies funded. That's up to the Republicans. Very simply, all they have to do is agree with our simple ideas that every police department just about in America follows, and we'll get it all done. It's plain and simple. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. The President last night briefly made his case for why strikes in Iran might be necessary. You've been briefed by top administration officials now. Would you personally support strikes?
Look, I can't talk about the briefing. It's classified, but what they talked about is very serious. And the American people, the administration should come clean and tell the American people their goals. Yes.
Thank you, leadership. Republicans have said they're going to cut campaign ads. With the moment last night when Democrats remained seated when President Trump said, stand if you support Americans over illegal immigrants. Why didn't Democrats stand?
Of course we support Americans. We're not going to be a prop in Donald Trump's little show.
I wanted to ask you about the University of New Hampshire poll that is out that shows Plattner up almost 40 points on Mills, Plattner up 11 on Collins, but basically even with Plattner up 11 on Collins, basically even with Mills.
Yeah.
Did you guys pick the wrong
Polls come and go. There are different polls that are all over the lot. We're going to win in Maine, and frankly, Mills is the only Democrat who's won statewide in 20 years.
Leadership.
Yes.
There's reporting that some Epstein files have been withheld or removed related to Trump. Are you worried that there are still files that were not released in regards to the...
Yes, I think the process in terms of releasing the files has been terribly flawed. We demanded that all the files be released. They have not been. And the Attorney General and Trump himself are just derelict. And the American people keep asking a question that doesn't serve them well, doesn't serve Bondi and Trump well. What the hell are you hiding?
Is there any
Thank you,
recourse
everybody.
for Congress on that?
All right, you just heard from Senate Democrats. That was Senator Chuck Schumer that just wrapped up that press conference reacting to the State of the Union address that happened last night. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Hi, folks. Thanks so much for being with us here on Live Impact News. Vanessa Rufus taking over for Nick Sturdivant. We're kicking things off this hour with our Miles Harris, who's joining us right now in the Live Impact News studio to talk about his story coming up tonight at 4:30 and at 5:30 as well. And this is regarding a new place for sports medicine.
Yes.
Sounds super exciting, and it looks like it's on the brink of, I guess, opening up, and the public can come check it out soon.
Yeah. The Carolina Sports Medicine Center. My jaw's still on the floor after seeing this place. Because it's as close as it gets to looking like a professional sports complex center. It offers so many things for people, especially from the basketball side of things. They have obviously 2 basketball-style courts out there. They also have training. They also have sports science. They also have rehab out there as well. So it's a place that has so many resources and availability for people under one roof. And so it was cool to hear from the developers talk about really the big goal for this is making things that look like they're out of reach for households, for families, as far as getting that professional experience, and really just the advantages of the things that they can use, like the training facility, like the rehab facility, putting that all under one roof, making it accessible for people throughout Charlotte. I mean, this is something that we've never seen, not only just here, but probably throughout the entire country.
Yeah, we've been looking at some video right now so folks can see on their screens a bit of the inside.
Yeah.
It looks spectacular. You're mentioning trying to make things more attainable for families. Who is this geared towards, in the sense, is this like somebody who maybe they have kids and these kids eventually want to become athletes of some sort, whether it's on the college level or
And I
like
think it's part of that. It's a combination of that, the exposure, but also the experience. So one of the partners with this as well is Slay Basketball. Tamar Slay and his wife, they run that, and Tamar played for the Bobcats. He played in the NBA, and so he has that experience, and he's still a coach here at the high school level, even locally here as well. And so to be able to put that in, to say, okay, like, we can put this together to see what the pro players deal with, what they look through, giving that experience, but also, again, making it accessible for people here. That's all what they want to do. To be able to kind of bridge that gap is the kind of the saying that we talk about a lot, but they were really trying to put that together here with this one. And so to finally see this all come in, and we've only seen one phase. There's 3 phases to this. There's still going to be a neuroscience facility with this as well.
Wow.
And so they're also partnering with Atrium Health. So there's a lot of developments that are still coming with this, but this first phase is definitely a really good one.
Yeah, it looks really cool. Where is it exactly in Charlotte? Like, have people seen it, like, as they drive by, or is this more like set off the road?
It's a little off the road. It's
Yeah.
in South Charlotte, and so it's really in between, literally like I guess like Mecklenburg County and Union County per se, and it's near like a Lifetime Fitness over there, and off of Gold Links, and so it's kind of in the back there, but trust me, once you see it on the outside, you'll recognize it from afar. And obviously, there's still a lot of construction taking place with this as well. But again, a really awesome experience to be able to see this firsthand. There's some of the things that I really can't talk about yet, as far as some of the things that I know that they're going to be having there in the coming weeks with a couple of players and teams and things like that. And so I'll leave it at that. But it's definitely going to hit the ground running once it officially opens up here this week. So
state secrets.
Yeah, we'll keep it there.
Okay. Well, I'm sure once you get the all clear, maybe you could come back and tell us.
I'm bringing my camera if I can.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
So, absolutely.
Okay. Anything as far as the public needs to know about important dates for opening, or I think I heard you talking about maybe an open house that might be happening?
So there's a grand opening, which is set for tomorrow evening, which is at 4:30, I want to say. So that's when they're officially cutting the ribbon, letting everybody know this is officially open. And then I know that they're going to have an open gym with the Slay Basketball portion of it this Saturday. And so I don't know as far as what the availability for that looks like. I know that as far as even some of the more elite players and stuff, their demand has been through the roof. They're already like kind of having to cap off where they are with some of that stuff. And open gyms for the kids, still a little bit depending on the availability and the age and things like that. But this is definitely something that was seeming like a need, but it seems like it's also giving a lot to the community as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool to think, I've been here for several years, just how year by year the sports scene evolves in so many different ways. And I know lately it's I felt like maybe on the pro sports side of things, but I mean, this is super cool too. And I think folks are probably going to be excited to hear more about this.
I think so too. And like the other part about that, Vanessa, I'll say is what's interesting is with the sports lab side of things, right? So like you can go onto like a platform and you can jump on it. And they can take that science to say, okay, maybe you're favoring one side of your leg compared to the other one. And they can put that into your training, which could prevent injuries, but could also elevate your game as well. And these are little things that even being a former athlete would not have thought that would have been a thing 10, 15 years ago. So to see that, thinking that it was only available for the most elite of athletes, but it's not, and seeing it's available for more people, definitely opens a lot of people's eyes.
Well, and that will like pay off down the road too. I'm thinking, if you are, for example, you're favoring one side, over the years that can add up. So it almost could be preventative.
Exactly.
If you're a pretty active person too,
Exactly. So it's cool to see that all under one roof, and we're excited to see what it looks like will be down the road as well. So
fantastic. All right. So 4:30 and 5:30, right? Folks can check your piece out.
Correct.
Perfect. All right, and that'll be right here on WCNC Plus. Miles Harris, thank you so much.
Thank you, Vanessa. I appreciate it. You too.
All right. You want to take a break, Jib? Cool. Let's do it. We'll be back in 2 minutes with more Live Impact. Hi, folks. Back here in the Live Impact News studio. We're going to turn now to a brand new live feed we're seeing in our newsroom. This is coming to us out of Montgomery County, Maryland, and police have just announced the arrest of a person they believe was the person who opened fire on a Maryland state trooper during a traffic stop, and also the same person who is accused of killing millionaire Robert Fuller at a senior living facility in Potomac. Let's listen in right now.
Able to answer when we're done with our presentations this morning. But I first want to say thank you to the administration and staff of the Cozier Potomac Senior Living Facility here in Montgomery County. Without their cooperation and assistance, I do not believe that we would be here today to announce the arrest of Marquise James in our investigation of the homicide of Mr. Fuller. On February 14th, detectives from the Montgomery County Police Major Crimes Division began their investigation into the murder of Robert Fuller, Jr. Detectives spoke with several of the staff and residents of the Cozier Potomac Senior Living as we attempted to learn more about the victim and the events that led up to the murder of Mr. Fuller. One of the staff members that was spoken to by detectives was a medicine technician at the Cozier facility by the name of Marquise James. Mr. James advised the detectives that he had worked the previous night and that he administered medicine to the victim and his roommate as per usual. The scene that day was processed and evidence was collected from Mr. Fuller's apartment. It did not appear that anything had been taken from inside the apartment according to investigators. Cozier provided the detectives with surveillance video from the previous night and the day of the homicide. And while viewing the video, detectives noted that at approximately 5:05 a.m., an individual was seen walking through a courtyard outside the facility and entering the Cozier facility using an exterior door. Approximately 10 minutes later, the same suspect once again appears, this time through the same exterior door before running outside of the view of the surveillance cameras that captured the courtyard. The detectives that same night immediately responded back to the Cozier facility and went to investigate the doorway where the individual had gone around the time of the murder. The detectives discovered that the door alarm sensor had been tampered with, which caused it to become non-functional. The detectives also, while they were conducting their investigation, found a small folded paper towel that appeared to have been folded in a manner that had been used by someone to prop open that exterior door. The detectives spoke with alarm technicians from the facility, and they learned that the last date that alarm sensor was functional was back on January 9th of this year. That same day, video shows that Marquise James had used that exterior doorway twice. He was the only person on camera to leave that facility utilizing that door on January 9th, just before the alarm sensor becomes non-functional. This past Friday, the department put out a media release which included a still photo and a short video clip of the individual who detectives had seen on video walking through the courtyard around the time of our homicide of Mr. Fuller. As we had hoped, the video elicited a response from the public's attention, and the detectives spoke with an individual that they believed knew who the person was in the photo that we released. Through the description provided by the tipster, the detectives were able to identify Marquise James as the person believed to be in the photograph. The tipster also claimed that other people at the Cozier facility had observed James wearing the same plaid shirt or jacket on multiple occasions prior to the homicide. Early Monday morning at approximately 1:15 a.m., one of the detectives working this investigation received a call from an employee at Cozier who stated that they had located another employee inside of the Cozier facility while they were conducting their overnight checks, as they will normally do, checking on the residents. The employee identified this individual as Marquise James. James' shift had ended at 11 p.m. that same night, and his explanation for why he was still at the facility caused this other staff member concern. James walked away from that employee, left belongings behind, and said that he needed to go find his keys. A short time later, there was an alert that went out from a door sensor to one of the exterior doors at the facility. James reappeared, and this employee who had had this initial conversation with Marquise James asked him if he was the one that had triggered the alarm at this exterior door. His explanation was that wasn't him. He wasn't. He hadn't gone anywhere near that door. And as soon as the staff member said, "Hey, I need to notify a supervisor what's going on," Mr. James grabbed his belongings and fled the Cozier facility. Once James left the building, the staff and a security guard went to check on the stairwell door that the alarm had activated at. And upon opening the door, a black napkin fell from the doorway, and there was also a small white paper towel that was also nearby, that very similar to what we found when we went back on February 14th, the day of Mr. Fuller's murder. The battery, what we also found at that sensor, had been tampered with and had been flipped around so that the alarm sensor for that exterior door was no longer functional.
Folks, we're going to pivot really quickly. We've got some breaking news. We're following an NBC News special report is getting underway regarding an incident involving a U.S. registered speedboat shot at in Cuban waters. Let's go ahead and listen in. Here's Tom Yamas.
On an American-registered speedboat. Here's what we know at this hour. Cuba's Ministry of the Interior says a speedboat, they say, with a Florida registration opened fire on Cuban border guard troops this morning. The ministry says it happened when the troops approached the American boat to request identification and that the commander of the Cuban vessel was injured. The ministry says the troops then returned fire, killing 4 people aboard that boat and injuring 6 others in the confrontation. The injured have been taken back to Cuba to be treated medically. Again, this is all coming right now from the Cuban government. So as we get more information, we will bring it to you. I do want to bring in NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez. And Gabe, this is such a serious situation because of the rhetoric between the United States and the Cuban government. Just recently, I think less than 2 weeks ago, the Cuban president, the leader of Cuba, saying that Cuba was ready for war with the United States in the wake of what's happened in Venezuela and that they were on alert for anything that might happen there. Again, sometimes these incidents happen in those waters. We should mention the location where this happened was very close to the Bahamian border as well, where there's usually lots of both drug smuggling and people smuggling as well. Cubans trying to flee the communist oppression there. What do we know right now coming from either our Coast Guard or the White House right now, Gabe?
Well, Tom, there are a lot of unanswered questions right now. We are out to White House officials trying to get any more details on this. But so far, as you said, all we know is from the Cuban side at this point. They say 4 people are dead and 6 others on that boat, which was registered in Florida, have been injured. And also, Tom, another border guard troop from the Cuban side was also wounded, according to the Cuban government. Now, this all comes, as you said, amid ramped up tensions between the two countries in the wake of the capture of Venezuela's Nicolás Maduro. There have been significant fuel shortages in Cuba over the last few weeks, and there have been questions about what the U.S. plans to do next year. The president himself recently saying that he expects the Cuban government to fall. And, Tom, right now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in the Caribbean, in the island of St. Kitts and Nevis, meeting with Caribbean leaders. Again, we're out to the State Department as well for any comment. But, Tom, a lot of unanswered questions here about who exactly was on that boat and what led to this confrontation.
And Gabe, right now the only information we're getting from the U.S. government is coming from elected representatives in Congress from South Florida who are putting this news out there. But again, we're not hearing from the State Department or anyone else just yet.
Not yet. Again, we're still awaiting any confirmation about who exactly was on that boat. But it comes as, you know, there has been this huge military buildup on the other side of the Caribbean. And also the Trump administration has been really escalating its rhetoric towards the Cuban government. Secretary of State Rubio, of course, is Cuban American and has made a large part of his political career being very, wanting to topple essentially the Cuban government, the communist government there. But again, at this point, we do not have any details about who was on that boat.
We thank you. As we look at this map here, I'm going to bring in Jose Diaz-Balart. Guys, let's put that map back up. I want to show the viewers exactly where this is happening right now. Jose, talk our viewers through the location here, right? Because again, where you see that little white dot at the top of northwest Cuba, this is where the incident, according to the Cubans, happened, 1 nautical mile off those keys off the north of Cuba. So this is very close to the Bahamian border. Again, Sal Bank, which is an area people go to fish, but also people where they go to drop off sometimes Cubans that they're smuggling, Cuban refugees that are trying to leave the island. Jose, we can't stress enough, this is such a sort of strenuous time right now between the U.S. and Cuba has made it very clear they are on alert for any type of U.S. attack or any type of incursion that would happen in their country.
Indeed, Tom. And, you know, it's striking to remember sometimes that Cuba is 90 miles away from Key West. And so the proximity of the island to not only Florida, but to the Bahamas, which is really a skip and a jump away, there are a lot of questions. And so far, the only source about this incident comes from the Cuban regime. Important to recognize and also remember that that regime has oftentimes utilized humans for political purposes, sometimes releasing political prisoners when an American celebrity comes to the island or some person who requests that some political prisoners are released. We have to also remember that it was the 24th of February, 1996, 30 years ago yesterday, that 2 small Cessnas from Brothers to the Rescue, a South Florida organization that was seeking rafters leaving the island, was shot down over international waters by the Cuban regime. 4 people were killed, 3 citizens, 1 American resident.
Yeah, a lot of unanswered questions here, including why there were so many people on that boat and why they fired back. A lot of times in these smuggling incidents, they leave. This is going to conclude this NBC News special report. We thank you.
All right, and folks, of course, we will keep you updated as we learn more throughout the afternoon and evening here on Live Impact News and on our normal newscasts on WCNC Plus here. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in 2 minutes with more of your headlines on the other side. Welcome back, everyone, to Live Impact News. We will turn back to this press conference we were watching just a few moments ago out of Montgomery County, Maryland, as authorities have announced the arrest of a man for opening fire on a Maryland state trooper during a traffic stop and killing millionaire Robert Fuller at a senior living facility in Potomac. Let's listen in again.
A lot of credit for taking the steps that they did. To tell Mr. James at the time that they had that second contact, hey, something was very odd. That alarm sensor going off, as it did right on the time that he disappeared. The fact that they were going to notify their supervisor, I truly do feel that we headed something nefarious off. Okay.
But to Paul's point, there was a killer working in their midst for several days. That's the first question. What's also the motive? Do we have a motive in this case at all? What's the motive?
We're still very early in the investigation, as I'm sure you can understand. With Mr. James' arrest yesterday afternoon, there's still a lot of work that we need to do to try to get a better sense of who he was and what type of events were going on or leading up to the death of Mr. Fuller. To your first point about, yes, there was an employee who we now have discovered was the murderer. At the time, nobody truly did know that they still had somebody that ultimately became the primary suspect in our investigation working at their facility. I do know, talking with my investigators, that Cozier did take steps towards hiring armed security. They were making sure that they were doing everything that they could if the suspect in this case was somebody outside of their facility. But the fact that, again, they were making their employees well aware of what had transpired, I think, again, gave us a better idea or allowed for the employees to take the steps they needed to make sure that they saw something suspicious, they made a notification.
Didn't they have to know that the likely suspect was inside the building because there's security to get in the building? The people are not transitory coming to and from that much. It's a closed community. You would think that probably someone who's in the building all of the time, given security, given the perimeter security and the like, the cameras, would probably have been from someone on the inside.
Well, at the beginning of any investigation, we can't rule out any possibilities. We don't ever say, hey, we can only focus inside of a, in this case, the senior living facility, or we're solely looking at a stranger from outside. So there were many different possibilities, and fortunately, nobody else got hurt in this case.
Over here.
Is in the photo of the suspect in that surveillance video, is the suspect wearing a wig, and did you find that wig? I know that was a topic on social media.
Right. So I can't see the photograph, but I can visualize what it is you're all is up on the screen at this point in time. The surveillance video that we had from that courtyard that we provided a still photo from the back so that the public would be able to see the clothing that the suspect was wearing and the way that person walked, their gait. When they were leaving the facility, after exiting the facility and coming back towards the camera, it did appear that the suspect had a mask on, and at the time we had no idea that was a wig. There were a number of different possibilities in this particular case. Some people thought that could have been a part of a disguise. I will say that last night while we were conducting our search warrants at both residences, we were able to locate numerous wigs at one of the locations along with a mask.
Over here.
So this is a guy who took the time to become a med tech training. He's got a job, shows up for work. I can't find a criminal history in Maryland other than traffic violations, and all of a sudden, 2 shootings. Elderly man. Any idea what this is all about? Can you just talk about, I mean, this is a bizarre, strange crime. Any idea what this is all about?
Well, as I just said, since this is very, very early on, the detectives have a lot of work that they need to do to try to dive deeper into who Marquise James is and what any potential motive would have been between him committing this homicide of Mr. Fuller on the 14th and then being involved in the shooting of the state trooper early Tuesday morning. At this particular juncture of the investigation, we do not have a good sense of why he shot and killed Mr. Fuller. Upon speaking with him, he said their relationship was very good, and he would never have hurt Mr. Fuller. So we're hopeful that as we get further in, doing more of an investigation, we're going to get a better sense of what was going on behind the scenes, what types of communications Marquise James had, what he was searching on his electronic devices, and we're hopeful that that's going to lead us to a better sense of why.
Paul made a comment about the statement from Cogier.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to the people of that community now about their safety?
I'll say that we completely understood the panic and the fear that the death of Mr. Fuller, the murder of Mr. Fuller brought out in that community. We took this very, very seriously. The investigators, as I said, have worked incredibly hard. Long days, long nights, time away from their family because they knew the importance of bringing or identifying a suspect in this case as quickly as they possibly could. As I said, Cogier has cooperated fully with our investigation. I think without their assistance, without them providing data on employees, surveillance video that we requested, and other pieces of information that were very useful in our identifying Marquise James, I still think we're a long way from trying to figure out who killed Robert Fuller Jr. and who shot at the Maryland State Trooper.
All right, so we're going to take these two questions over here, and then Carlos, this gentleman over here in the burgundy sweater. And then if anyone has any questions afterwards, we can make availability for you afterwards, but we just need to wrap up the news conference. So Carlos, if you can take this woman, and then Fran, and then this gentleman over here.
Yes, hello. Regina with Fox 5. My question is, were there any warnings or red flags even before these two incidents happened? And did Cozier mention anything about if he was, had some strange behavior, something that could lead to maybe answering a little bit more questions? Because this is, a medicine administrator, and I want to clarify if he was, providing medicine to Mr. Fuller and other patients. I mean, how long was he working there?
So it's my understanding that Marquise James was hired back in October of 2025 at Cozier. So he's only worked there a short period of time. Now, a lot of the questions that you have are part of his personnel, employee file at the facility. So I think those questions are better asked to the administration down at Cozier. We're hopeful that now that Mr. James has been identified as the person that that has been charged in the murder of Mr. Fuller, once his picture gets out there, and once people get a chance to see learn more about this investigation through the media, we're hopeful that other people are going to maybe come forward and give us a little bit more background about any of the interactions that they may have had with Marquise James while he was employed at Cozier or outside in everyday life.
One more.
Yes, sir. Dave Laval with DC News Now. What can you tell us about Mr. James' criminal past? Is there a record?
That's something I can't comment on at this time. Okay.
Okay, at this point, we're going to conclude our news conference. Again, if you have any more questions, we will make Maryland State Police and anyone from the police department available to you to answer some questions one-on-one. Thank you very much for coming.
And with that, folks, we will go ahead and take a quick break here on Live Impact. Back in 2 minutes with more of your headlines on the other side. Welcome back, everyone. We are turning to a brand new feed we're keeping an eye on right now. It looks like we've got folks speaking. This is the Hispanic Caucus Chair, Adriano Espelay, and members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Let's listen in right now.
And I sunk in my chair. I felt sad for our country. I felt sad for our democracy. I thought about my own kids and grandkids someday, grandkids, and what they're going to have to clean up after this mess. We desperately need leaders to try to bring this country back together, to try to heal the wounds that are being caused on a daily basis by this president. And to the extent that he spoke about immigrants, it was to demonize, it was to vilify. He told some horrendous stories. But he did so, I believe, with the intent of trying to frame the entire debate that everything they're doing, this mass deportation campaign being carried out by Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, Tom Homan, Greg Bovino, they want to create the impression that every immigrant is violent, that every immigrant is a threat to our national security or our public safety. And all of us that have been working for our constituents for this last year, we know that's a bunch of garbage. We know that there are truly violent people out there, and we want for those people to be dealt with. But the numbers are pretty clear. 86% of the people that were caught up in ICE's net this past year, detained by ICE, nonviolent. I visited myself one of the ICE facilities in San Diego last Thursday. There were 1,200 ICE detainees there. Well over 1,000 of them had absolutely no criminal record, including a constituent that I spoke with. And my guest last night was a woman named Stephanie Quintino, who was born in the United States, 28 years old. She has 2 siblings, also born in the United States. Her parents, Gladys and Nelson Gonzalez, came from Colombia 36 years ago. They were in the U.S. in my district for decades. And the only thing they ever did wrong, they never had so much as a traffic ticket. The only thing they ever did wrong is they got bad legal advice. And the original lawyer that they hired to help with the asylum process, he wound up getting disbarred. And then year after year after year, they would voluntarily show up to their meeting with ICE. And they were even told on multiple occasions, you'll be okay, you'll be allowed to stay, you're good people. You pay taxes, you're both working, you're raising kids. Until February of last year, when they voluntarily showed up at their meeting with ICE, and they were detained, separated, sent to 3 different facilities each, and deported back to Colombia, where they've been ever since. It's a disgrace. It's shameful. It's shameful. So I hope that everybody, I know you're all professionals, you all cover things every single day. What we heard last night was different. Even for this president, it was different. And I hope you all just pause and really think about what it means for this country. I hope you do that. Thanks, Adriano.
Thank you. Thank you to all the members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus for your testimonies today, your visitors that you had yesterday, your guests. I thought that they represented a broad spectrum of where we are as a caucus, not just about immigration, but also other issues that are critically important to our community. Questions? Right here.
Thank you all for doing this. I'm curious, what conversations CHC members have you had with your Democratic colleagues about helping them understand, in addition to the stories that they hear from their constituents, the impact of these policies, the impact of what the president is trying to do? How has the CHC taken a leadership position over the last year in helping your colleagues understand how to talk about these issues, how to understand them, and what questions to ask of their constituents when they're back in their district?
Without bragging about it, I think we taught the caucus how to fight back on this issue. We started out, if you may all remember, by saying, how are we going to talk about this issue that the American people would understand? Because immigration is so broad, right? It's dreamers, it's TPS recipients, it's farm workers, it's deportees, it's family reunification, it's DACA recipients. It's all of that, right? It's visas. So we said dreamers, farm workers, and keeping families together. And everybody began to articulate it along those 3 silos, right, as we move forward. And as we confronted the mass deportation efforts, we were able to concentrate our efforts on 3 rails, right? First, budgetary and legislative. And many of us have introduced legislation or are part of legislation that I think will bring about reform. But in addition to that, budgetarily, we have been pushing for what already happened, which is for us to hold back the funding for DHS. That's what we're discussing today. And finally, you know, we have in the courts, it's the second rail, and we have dozens of cases where we are all involved in, including cases where we are plaintiffs. I am a plaintiff in the case. For the first time, members of Congress sued the administration to try to get access to the detention center so we could exercise our oversight duties. IRS stopping them from sharing that information with ICE, and a host of other cases that we are involved in the courts. So budgetarily, legislatively, the courts, and then of course there is public sentiment, public opinion. And I think we have been critical in reshaping the public's opinion about immigration as a whole. When we saw our senior senator Padilla in California get slammed to the floor, I think that shook up America. A sitting member of Congress, a senator, being slammed and thrown up against the wall by ICE? Where is this going? So I think we have been at the forefront of this fight, and we have very much helped shape the agenda. Right here, then right here, and right there.
Thanks, sir. Question for Congresswoman Leger Fernandez.
Leger.
You on the Rules Committee were there when they were attempting to hold the Clintons in contempt. And now the depositions are going to proceed tomorrow for Hillary Clinton and Friday for Bill Clinton. Obviously, there are a lot of questions one could ask Bill Clinton about Jeffrey Epstein, but what is your understanding of what the Republicans want from Hillary Clinton in particular, who seemed to not have any relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? What's the point of bringing her in?
So remember, what the Epstein survivors has been asking for is both transparency and accountability. And they have asked over and over again, because as chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus, we work really closely with the Epstein survivors. We had about 15 here yesterday. And what Republicans want to do is turn this into political theater rather than justice and accountability. And that's what they're doing, I think, with Hillary Clinton. Now, what we want to do is have anybody who has information come out, sit for deposition, answer questions, be held accountable, have the Department of Justice investigate them, including those who we know they are hiding files. 3 million files have not been released, and they pull back those files that are damning of the president and others. So what the Clintons have said, let's do this publicly, which would be consistent with transparency. But they don't want to do that. And I think that tells you everything about what those depositions are. So I hope that answered your question. And thank you very much. We'll give you a free green chili burrito when you come to New Mexico.
And he pronounced your name right, too. He pronounced your name right. Now, how do you pronounce Adriano Espaillat? You got to roll your R's there. There you go. Yeah.
Trump at one point during his address while talking about immigration and the Homeland Security shutdown asked everyone to stand up if they agree that the first duty of the American government is to American citizens. I wonder, and obviously most Democrats didn't stand up, I was wondering if you could sort of respond to that moment and sort of the support for the immigration message.
I have a very robust constituency services operation, and both in Harlem and in Washington Heights and the Bronx. And when someone comes to my office I'm about to give them the service that they want, I don't ask them, where they came from. I don't ask them whether in fact, I don't even ask them if they're from my district. Some people come from as far as Jersey and across the bridge. And I provide the same service. I think that's my duty as a member of Congress that has sworn to protect this nation from enemies, both foreign and domestic. And so I think that question was divisive. I think the nature of the State of the Union is one that you've seen the other side sat down on a bunch of things. And so to sort of like play that out so that it could be theater for America, it was disingenuous at the very least. if not very divisive. And our country doesn't need more division than it has. Clearly, what we need is some consensus building. He said nothing there that will bring people together. At least throw us a bone. Make sure that you bring something forward that perhaps we can work together on, rather than finger point, lie, accuse, make fun of. Come on, yes. Yes.
Go ahead.
Come on.
Andrea Salinas from Oregon 6th District. When I heard him say that, I got pissed because in the Rules Committee, when the DHS bill came up, I offered an amendment that would first and foremost protect American citizens' First Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment rights, and require ICE and DHS to allow all of you to do your jobs and to allow someone like my constituent, Maria, who had just had her rotator cuff torn while she was running errands trying to pick up a birthday cake for her son. She was left there on the ground with no help. They did not call an emergency medical physician or anybody. First and foremost, and she's a citizen. But you know what? She looked Latina. First and foremost, yes, we should be protecting American citizens, but instead, they're killing them on the streets of Minneapolis.
So to follow up, when I heard the president say that, protect American citizens, what about Alex Preddy? What about Renee Good? What about all the other American citizens that are getting trapped up in this whole situation with ICE? We offered amendments to protect or to prevent any, I know Adriano and I on appropriations, protect any citizen from being deported or detained. They wouldn't go for it. They wouldn't agree to any of these amendments. And then the second thing is the 5th and 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States for centuries has protected everybody here. Everyone's entitled to equal protection. Everyone's entitled to due process. So I saw Stephen Miller's tweet afterwards saying it was the biggest moment in the history of the Congress. Doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Doesn't know the first thing about the history of anything other than his own warped history, whatever his revisionist history is. The whole thing is disgraceful to me. It was a stunt, and it was pathetic.
It was purely a moment for the way to figure people. Should we need to have more?
Okay. I'm going to go to the female reporter and then you. I'm sorry I jumped you. Go ahead.
Thank you for having us. You said you had to step away to take a call about the situation in Cuba.
Yes.
I'm wondering if there's anything more you can share with us on that.
No, just what's been reported, and I don't want to talk more about it until I get more information.
How concerning is that situation?
Anything that involves the death of 4 Americans, I think, is concerning to all of us here in this room, and particularly in that region of the world, which is like a powder cake, right? Could blow up at any time. Right here.
You've talked about today, how Democrats are pushing back on Trump's policies, how the support in the Hispanic community has cratered. I'm wondering if you think the party as a whole, not just the caucus, has done enough to address those issues that drove the Hispanic community towards Trump more in 2024 in the first place. Has the party done enough to really address those problems?
I want to give some of my colleagues the opportunity. Anybody else wants to respond?
Sure.
Come on, Emma.
Yeah. So our caucus has spent a lot of time in committee, in conversations in our communities, talking about real solutions for the affordability crisis. We're spending a lot of time here this week talking about real solutions for the affordability crisis. And what you know, and what I think some of our constituents don't really understand, is that the rules of Congress don't allow the minority party to decide what comes before committee and what policies come to the floor. We have exercised more strength than any other minority party before by bringing a record number of discharge petitions to floor votes to allow us to advance what is bipartisan policy, even if it is not the policy of the House Republican leadership. We are using every lever we can to push for better for the American people because they deserve better. And I know that many of us, whether New Democrats or Congressional Progressive Caucus or any member working in conjunction with colleagues and in their district, we have great plans to overturn some of the worst of Trump's affordability policies, reinvesting money in childcare, reinvesting in money in healthcare services, new programs for housing affordability. I'm chairing the Progressive Caucus's Better Pay and Benefits Task Force because we know that working people need more opportunities to bring home the money that will allow them to build the lives that they dream of, to contribute to our economy. And all of our caucus has great plans and strategies that we are workshopping so that when we do have the gavels, we can pass bills 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 off the House floor as soon as possible to deliver real results for the American people and not just showboat like this president has been doing.
I think you had a question, yes.
If I may add to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. First, on the tariffs, we've helped educate the American people that this is helping raising prices, especially on food. Second, on health care, we pushed a force a vote to help extend the Obamacare subsidies, which Florida, we have the most Obamacare enrollees of any state in the union, 4.6 million. A lot of Puerto Ricans, a lot of Cubans on Obamacare. And so you'll see us continue to do that. What they're looking for is a check on Trump going forward, because this Congress refuses to do that. And so as we're talking about what the American people are looking for in the next Congress, they want a Congress that's going to hold the president accountable, lower costs, protect our care, and stand up to the rampant corruption that we see. And so you'll see us continue to talk about these things over and over and over again.
One of the funny banners that I saw in Florida one time was a pro-Trump banner, and then in the bottom it had a link to enroll in Obamacare. So
that would be my answer. Not in Central Florida.
Kind of piggybacking on that, something you guys have been talking about how Trump has lost popularity with the Hispanic population.
Yeah.
Something that I've heard from CHC members before is that a way to kind of strengthen that or solidify Democratic or Hispanics going towards Democrats is by having more Hispanic candidates as well, particularly in districts with large Hispanic populations. Dietrich just announced its first slate of Red to Blue program. There's one Hispanic candidate there, Dylan Mendoza. Is our CHC members, both health members, Hispanic members, are all still having conversations with Dietrich right now to make sure that they keep adding more Hispanic candidates?
Yes.
Well, folks, we're in a good spot here to take a quick break. If this feed is still going, we will continue with that in 2 minutes when we return to Live Impact News. All right, folks, back here in the Live Impact News studio, that prior feed wrapped up. So we're going to turn now to a live look inside at the Senate floor. We do know that at some point there's going to be another attempt to vote to end the partial government shutdown, which is impacting DHS. We are going to listen in. I don't know if we have anyone specific. I saw Jeb a few moments ago, looked like Richard Blumenthal might have been speaking.
Yeah,
but-
Blumenthal just wrapped up.
Oh,
We're
okay.
waiting for the next speaker to hopefully start here in a second.
Okay, so of course, as we mentioned, kind of the big discussion that we're seeing right now is the attempt to end the partial government shutdown, as we've been detailing for the last several days. This is impacting DHS. We are seeing kind of the big sticking point, primarily Democrats looking to get included in the spending package for DHS, more guardrails for immigration enforcement officers, and that is essentially the holdup that we're seeing at this point. Looks like we're kind of in between speakers, not seeing a lot of movement right now. Did you want to talk stocks? I see you've prepped us a bit with the big board. Let's do that. We're getting pretty close to closing bell. If we get any more movement on the Senate floor, we'll head back there. But we can see a lot of green right now as we check out the Dow Jones, getting closer, probably just a few minutes away from markets closing for the day. Seeing that rise across all the major indices. So the Dow is up. You could see more than 300 points on the day. S&P up about 60 points, and NASDAQ up close to 300. We're seeing some support here from NVIDIA and Oracle, building on some gains from the prior trading day. NVIDIA was actually up more than 2% ahead of its earnings report, actually scheduled to be released after the bell, with some results from software giant Salesforce and Snowflake. And this does come at a time when we're seeing investors looking at maybe recalibrating their stock valuations when it comes to the tech side. There is some growing skepticism, if you will, over the high AI capital expenditures. So yeah, we'll keep an eye out for how things actually close. But so far, so good, I think, in the sense of that green persisting for the next few minutes. Yeah. We got something else going? Okay. Well, folks, that's actually going to bring us right here to the close of Live Impact News. We hope you have a great day. We appreciate you sticking with us. Be safe if you're going to be heading back home, or if you're heading out to maybe an early dinner. I know it's 4 o'clock. I love an early dinner, though, so don't lie and say you don't either. Traffic is looking pretty good. We got a live look for you to close things off over on 77, just outside of Uptown. Let me give you a quick check right now. Roadway's looking pretty clear as far as incidents. Just a quick heads up, there is a crash on 85 near Brookshire Boulevard, northbound direction. 2 left lanes closed, but everything else looking pretty good on those majors. Stay safe, folks, and we'll see you for the news at 4. Jeez. That is so aggressive. Yeah.
Is that actually what it is?
No, it's an election promo. So whenever
so
y'all.
I'll be there in a minute. I can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Carboni has all the elections.
I've never been in a promo, I don't think. But
Which
anyway,
is such a shame.
It is, but I'm not complaining.
To be fair, I feel like you guys have been in promos that have aired.